Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mayor Garrett.
Present. It's this one. And I. Sorry, everyone. Much better. Thank you. Present from Lathrup Village, Michigan, Oakland County.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Here, Lathrup Village, Oakland County, Michigan.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Present, Oakland County, Michigan, Lathrup Village.
Councilmember Medley.
Sorry.
Can we just
Councilmember Medley.
Yeah.
It's coming on.
Just need one of these on. Yeah.
One moment, everyone.
Did you hear me before?
Two are on behind you, Jim. One more. Let that one off.
Oh, and this back in so we can see if there's a feedback, because it might just be, I don't know.
There's no feedback right now.
Do I hit this button?
Okay, now let's see if we got feedback.
Oh, go to mute yours. Okay. In your mute. I'm muting. So can we hear?
Have like Ian speak.
Ian, can you say something?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, where did we leave off at?
We left off at Councilmember Medley.
Don Medley, present, Lathrup Village, Oakland County, Michigan.
And Councilmember Siddiqui.
Here, Lathrup Village, Michigan, Oakland County.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Who are you calling? I'm sorry.
You have a quorum.
Oh,
Yep,
thank
you
you.
have
I
a quorum.
appreciate- Thank you. I invite everyone that is in chambers at home and downstairs and in the meeting room to say the Pledge of Allegiance. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I would take a motion for the approval of minutes, but I think what we're gonna do first is we're gonna switch around
Yeah,
some of the items on the agenda. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to switch items 10 and 11 on the agenda. So making 11, 10, and 10, 11.
Second,
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
Councilmember Medley,
Yes.
and Councilmember Siddiqui.
yes,
Motion carried. So you're switching 11, 10 to 11.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next I'll take approval for the agenda. Oh, yeah, that was just switching the 10 and 11, I thought.
No, but the motion was to approve the agenda with.
Oh, okay. So sorry. We don't have any presentations, correct?
Correct.
We do not have anything for the Zoning Board of Appeals, correct?
Correct.
And we are needing approval for the consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the city council and will be approved by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion. If a discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after the consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda.
Make a
like
motion
to
to
make a-
approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion overall?
No discussion.
Right, I know. Caught myself. Next, we will move on to the disbursement
Still
report.
need to.
Pardon?
Need to do the roll call, please.
I'm sorry, no discussion, but yes, the roll call. Sorry.
Okay, roll call, Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
Councilmember Medley,
Yes.
Councilmember Siddiqui,
yes,
and Councilmember Ferguson.
Yes.
Consent agenda adopted, motion carried.
Thank you. Next, we'll go on to the disbursement report. This monthly disbursement report is for June 2021 and the fourth quarter investment report for staple there for periods ending June 30th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the June disbursement report for $2,149,537.34, comprised of dollars spent from the general fund in the neighborhood of $617,000, $484,000 in the major road fund, $487,000 in the local road fund, $10,000 capital fund, $41,000 from the DDA, and $509,000 in the water and sewer department.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
Councilmember Medley,
Yes.
Councilmember Siddiqui,
yes,
Councilmember Ferguson,
Yes.
and Mayor Garrett.
Yes.
Motion carried for the disbursement report.
Thank you. Next, we have the departmental reports. First up is the building department report and the clerk election report, community and economic development report, code enforcement report, finance water department report, downtown development authority report, police department report, recreation parks and facility report. And I'll need approval for those. Does anyone need to speak out about any reports, anything that's standing out that you want us to talk about? Or hear? Okay. Hearing none, then we're gonna move to the public hearing. And the public hearing is, I'm
We
sorry,
need a motion and second to accept the department reports.
I'll make a motion to accept the departmental reports.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Medley,
Yes.
Councilmember Siddiqui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Yes.
Motion carried to accept the department reports.
Thank you. Now we'll go into the public hearings to discuss approving plans and estimate for ditch repair for Cambridge Boulevard and to direct city treasurer to make a special assessment roll, number 1. So I'm opening up the public hearing. You have, is it 3 minutes also for the public hearing?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, prior to that, I would ask that the city engineer introduce this project.
Okay.
Providing cost, he's the one that prepared the cost estimates. So if Mr. Ringler could address that, just as an introduction.
Mr. Ringler.
Sure, thank you. So this project is of course a special assessment. It's for drainage improvements along Cambridge from Southfield Road to Lathrup Boulevard. We basically looked at 2 different options. One is a reditching option, which currently there's ditching mainly on the south side of the road and very limited on the north side of the road, generally because all the trees that are on the north side of the road. So we did look at doing some ditching. However, the green belts on both sides of the road are only about 10 foot wide. So it makes it difficult to do ditching without having a really steep ditch that's pretty much unmowable. So we looked at the second option of doing an under drain system. So we came up with installing an 8-inch perforated pipe laid across the south side of the road from Lathrup Boulevard to the alley near Southfield Road. And because of all the trees on the north side of the road, we installed some piping from the south side to the north side with some drainage structures and some edge drain where we could install that due to the trees on the north side. As an example for that road, a villa in Santa Rosa up near 12 Mile and Southfield was done that way, I think back in 2007. So is what we're able to do by installing that under drain with a perforated pipe, we're able to remove the existing culverts and we wouldn't reinstall culverts. We'd have the under drain system. So it'd just be new driveways and grading of the entire green belt. And it'd be a very soft swale. I would envision that swale would be no more than about 1 foot deep near the drainage structures. Again, we've had good success up in a villa in Santa Rosa. It drains really well through them ditches in that green belt area. As far as the cost estimate, so we put together all the work items that we would envision, including demolition. Some of the costs for the driveway and some landscaping would be paid for by the city. Typically, they pay for the first 3 or 4 feet of landscaping and driveway repairs if we were to reconstruct the road. So the city is paying for a small portion of the driveways and the landscaping, which isn't shown on this estimate. That would be included in the bond issue for the road work. So based on the quantities and the unit prices, the estimated construction cost came up to be, I think it's $81,000. We included engineering and a 15% contingency on top of that. I don't have my second page. I think that final was about $107,000.
107,652.
Yeah. And so we would envision that project being bid, if it is approved, we would bid it in accordance and in conjunction with the paving program. So that would be part of the paving program. we would have all these work quantities and items separately so we could figure out the final cost for the SAD portion.
Yeah, and Scott, I'd like to add as well, I know we did talk about this in the study session, but there's probably other people here for the public hearing who weren't here for that. But the reason this project is being proposed is because we are planning on paving Cambridge, that section of Cambridge next summer as part of the road, the millage that was approved for the 3-year road program. Part of the recommendation that was made to council and approved by council indicated that that the ditches needed to be repaired on any road that we were going to repave, because if we have non-functioning ditches, what that does is allows water to accumulate underneath the road, seeps in from the ditches and degrades the road from within, and we lose about 10% of the life of the road. So basically, we would be wasting 10% of the taxpayer money on this project. So for I don't remember what the cost. I think it was $132,000 to pave that stretch of road. So we'd be basically throwing $13,000 away. So for example, this year, in most cases, we were able to repair the ditches with very, very minor costs, but Cambridge is a very, very big problem in terms of non-functioning ditches. In fact, because of the magnitude of I guess failure of those ditches to operate properly, we could probably expect even more than 10% of loss there. So if the residents decide not to do the special assessment, the residents on that street, the property owners, then that road will not be paved, and it will just go back into the queue. We're paving 7 miles over the 3 years starting this summer. And after that, barring any influx of cash, which we're not expecting, we go back to the road maintenance program that we had before, which was only doing about 0.3 miles a year. So it's going to be it would be a very, very long time before Cambridge would be back up. That section of Cambridge would be back up on the list for paving. So just wanted to point that out.
So now we can open the public hearing, and each person gets 3 minutes to be heard. We will give you a maybe warning shot when you're coming up on 10 seconds or so, which is better for you. 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just a quick question for clarification. So Scott Wrangler stated the SAD portion. Can you clarify just so everyone is understanding what that is?
It's a special assessment district. That's what it stands for. SAD stands for Special Assessment District. And it's basically where the city proposes a project, or it actually could come from the residents, which it kind of did in this particular case.
Right.
And then we propose the project. The Special Assessment District is created, which we've done. I think it has 13 properties in it. And then it goes to public hearing, which we're doing tonight. Assuming there's not a large objection, then the process will move forward. If there are enough objections, then the process dies. And as I said earlier, then we'll also take that road off of the paving list for next year and substitute with a different road.
Okay. All right. Thanks for clarification.
Thank you. Will you state your name and address for the record, please?
Charles Greening, 19061 San Diego Boulevard. So this has got nothing to do with the Cambridge issue.
Okay, so this first one, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Green. This first one is a public hearing just for the Cambridge Street.
Well, let me just continue for a moment. It'll take only a moment.
Okay.
It sounds like Cambridge is going to turn into another assessment to take care of the problem of not keeping the drainage system in order. So I've taken care of my property 2 times over the years. I've been there 50 years. And I paid for it myself. And I don't want to be part of any public offering or arrangement or bond or whatever. That's what my concern was.
Well, thank you. Is there more time left? Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, that wouldn't affect you. This is only for those 13 residents who live on that street. This is not for the general population. It's a special assessment, which just affects 13 properties.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
I don't have anyone over here for this item.
Okay.
So up here, if you don't really
Okay, so
You have two hands raised.
I'm gonna go back to, was it Miss Fay? Is she still there?
Yeah, Ms. Fay.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Well, you've answered a few questions. I still had some concerns about, due to disrupted supply lines, about the current cost of materials and labor. Was that taken into consideration? And then I was wondering about the actual payments and how that was going to, if we're going to do installments, is that coming in our taxes? Is there going to be, you sort of alluded to, an administration fee or interest rate or something like that? So if we're going to be in installments, I'd like to know what the extra cost is going to be on that.
Thank you. We still have time. I'm sure you want to answer that one too, don't you?
Well, I mean, I think Scott Ringler needs to address whether or not cost increases were accounted for. I know he put a 15% contingency in there. Scott, can you address that?
Yeah, so the costs that are in the unit prices in the estimate were taking from the 2021 road paving bond issue. So them were dollars that were bid this past summer for the work that's currently going on in Lathrup. There are a few items such as the storm sewer. We have historical data that we've used. We've added some inflation to it. You never know what a bid's going to come in like, but that's our opinion, what the cost is going to come in at.
Is
It's
it
definitely not.
possible it would be less?
It's possible it could be less. Yes.
Okay.
Where are we at with time?
1 more minute.
Okay, you have one more minute, Ms. Fay.
Again, I've just had questions about installment payments and extra fees if I don't cut a check for the whole thing. And when are you going to have the actual cost? Now, right now it's just an estimate, right? So we need to find out what the actual costs are going to be and et cetera.
Yeah,
Correct.
so Ms. Fay, we typically bid these projects out in the winter, so I would envision this being bid out in January or early February with bids due in March. So at that time is when we would know what the cost would be.
Okay, and if there's issues with, like I said, the cost of labor and materials right now is it's sky high. I mean, I guess we're just kind of stuck with bad timing.
I don't have a great answer for that one. These bids come in high, low, we never know until we bid a project.
I mean, the timing on this is pretty lousy. That's all I'm saying in terms of cost.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Your time is up right
Thank
now. You're welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to add that with special assessments and in general, and with this one in particular, the residents, the property owners would have the 10 years to spread the payments out. And we have the administrative fee if those are, if they are utilizing that payment system, and we add the $50 for each year that those payments are spread over that period of time. Should the property be sold during that interim period, the full amount that is the balance due would be paid at the time of sale.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Ello. I hope I'm saying your name right. Sorry. You have a comment about, during the public hearing for about Cambridge?
You're on mute.
This is only regarding Cambridge. If it is, then I don't want to speak at this time, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is the public hearing for Cambridge.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Is there anyone else that has a question regarding or a comment regarding the public hearing for Cambridge? Does anyone have any comments or questions for the public hearing regarding Cambridge?
You do have two hands.
Thank you. The first one I have, I see is Don Parker. Mr. Parker?
Yes, my name is Don Parker. I actually live at 17631 Cambridge. I'm actually on that block between Southfield and Lathrup Village Boulevard. A resident for 30 plus years. Two questions. There was mention of one of the other streets that were paved in the past, or the ditches were redone, and was there a past assessment, and how was that handled with those residents on that block is one question. And then the other question that I had is in regard to, I'm on the south side of Cambridge, and the north side does have all of the trees that are located in those ditches, and so it sounded like they wanted to run the piping over to the south side. How in that assessment that was done, or the evaluation, are they going to clear out those trees? And what is the guarantee, for example, that this just won't, be a problem continued on in the future? I'm trying to see that and visualize that. Thank you.
Thank you. How many minutes do you? Scott Ringler, can we direct those questions to you? Because it's also about the trees. Ms. Fay had a question about the trees also. So if we could do that one first, and then how is the past assessments done?
So as far as the trees, that's the main reason we want to run it on the south side of the road. I think there's 4 or 5 trees on the south side, and there's already an existing ditch on the south side. So I don't envision this pipe being buried more than about a foot and a half below grade. And then from there, we would run leads to the north side. And then we would only install as much under drain as we can in the east-west direction until we start running into, closer to the trees. So I don't envision any trees having to be removed. And I think to answer your question on the San Rosa Villa project, the city received a grant. This is the top of my head, I think for about 80% of that project back in 2000, and I want to say it was 2007. So the city got a demonstration grant for that project.
Right, and Scott, wasn't that done as you said, as a demonstration so that we could kind of proof of concept for the future, which is come now essentially?
It was, and incorporated with that, we did rain gardens, I think on 10 or 11 properties up there. In the green belts. So that was part of the demonstration, was doing rain gardens.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next I see, I just saw it.
Krista Lay.
Krista Lay? Yes, Krista Lay.
Okay, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm actually here, it's both my husband and I, so I think he's gonna ask some of the questions. Thanks.
Yeah, so right now, the south side, which is the side we live at, 17579 Cambridge Boulevard, the south side doesn't really have as much of a flooding problem with the sidewalks as the north side does. So one of the questions is this going to address the flooding of the sidewalks on the northbound side? And what is going to guarantee that we're not going to then receive flooding on the south side based on overflow?
Scott, can you, I'm gonna hand that over.
Well, yeah, so, is what we would be doing is we would be regrading the green belts from the sidewalks to the road with a small swale so that the water will get off the road and will get off the sidewalk as long as that sidewalk is sloped correctly. As far as flooding on the south side, I don't envision that. We will design the storm sewer and size it enough to accept that drainage. As far as the amount of flow that would come into there. And you know, granted, a little bit of water in the ditch isn't a bad thing because it, you know, it keeps that peak flow from being out of the main sewer system.
Okay, and a follow-up question
Thank
to
you.
that would be, how is this impacting the driveway? So I know that there is going to be a modification to the driveways, but what is that modification? Because we've already reinstalled in our driveway, when we replaced it, we've already replaced the pipe that goes underneath that just a few years ago.
Yeah, so that culvert would be removed and it would not be replaced because we'll have a storm sewer underneath where that current culvert is, running the entire length from the alley at Southfield all the way down to Lathrup Boulevard.
So then what's going to go underneath my driveway?
Perforated pipe.
Perforated pipe under the driveway?
Yes. Yeah. The full length of your property.
And I guess one other question with that is, so will the driveway then be replaced? I mean, like what you guys have to tear up? Because like he said, we just like paid several $1,000s to have our entire driveway repaved a few years ago.
Yeah, so we have put in the budget to replace the entire driveway from the sidewalk to the road.
Okay. Okay, and there won't be any tearing up of the actual sidewalk? Oh, sorry.
No, there's only one spot where we got to put a storm sewer down at Lathrup Village, has to go underneath the sidewalk to connect into the existing drainage structure.
Thank you, Ms. Lay. Next, we have Dennis, and I'm sorry if I messed this up, Nordmo.
Just a follow-up question. I've noticed that there are culverts going under the street connecting the south and north sides now. My understanding is that all the water on the block ends up going through the drainage ditch alongside our property at Lathrup and Cambridge to the drainage structure at the corner of our property. So is that the case, or is the water on the north side designed now to go somewhere else besides there?
No, it's Dennis, it's probably designed to go there. I think we found one culvert that goes from the north side to the south side. And if I recall, that thing was pretty much buried, so it wasn't accepting all too much water. But I think the intent was for the ditches to drain from the north side to the south side and then along your property to the southwest corner of Lathrup Boulevard, where there's a couple of drainage structure there.
Okay, would not there be an advantage? It sounds like, although you talk about a perforated system, basically it's a closed system without open points. For example, along my property, our property, there's a short ditch, open culvert flowing into it, and then it goes under into another culvert under a large tree, probably the largest tree on the street, and under our driveway, then to another open ditch, and then to another culvert. And I've seen animals going in and out of these culverts. And I had to fetch a dead possum out of the ditch once. There's all kinds of opportunities for clogging those culverts now. Wouldn't that be eliminated? That clogging from external inputs be eliminated when you put everything under in this one under drain?
Yes, it'd be an enclosed drainage system.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more hands for the public hearing? I know there's another. I see that there's two, but Nick Payne.
Yes, hi, am I unmuted?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess my question is, I sent in some questions earlier before PM. Are we going to address those questions, or do I need to ask them at this time?
Go ahead and ask the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, one, I wasn't clear. The 10 years, we choose the installment plan at the end of the period of time and I sell the house, I have to pay the whole remainder at that time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then is there the opportunity, since the construction firm will be here, to solicit additional work on my own property of the firm?
Yes, you can also solicit that work with the contractor.
Okay.
But
He said at the end of 2 years, if it wasn't paid, he'd be responsible.
and Nick, just to follow up on that, that is a private deal. That's not part of the city's project, nor would it be part of the special assessment.
Understood. And last question, what determines the assessment per property? Is it just the number of properties on the block or the linear feet of each property exposed to this system?
So there are multiple ways that we could have done it. I guess legally it just has to be consistent. And the way that we approached it was to divide the entire cost by the number of parcels.
Okay, and this will not impact the commercial developments at the end of the block on Southfield?
I don't believe so, because the project stops before you get to the commercial properties.
Okay, but there are, I have the plan here, there's 3 major drains at those end properties on Lathrup or on Cambridge Boulevard.
Scott?
Yeah, there's some drainage structures there. That drainage picks up and goes over into the Southfield Road drainage system. So we did not incorporate anything from Southfield Road to the alley into the SAD.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Is there any, he wants to talk about something else. I don't see anyone.
Mr. Norman has
Sorry.
his hand up.
I don't know if that's the same question, unless there's another question that he has, you can bring him off of mute.
A follow-up to Mr. Payne's question about soliciting a contractor for additional work. As you know, there's very limited parking on Cambridge. And I think a year ago, I had a brief discussion with Scott about the possibility if the ditch is filled in, which you plan on doing. We have the very deep ditch along our property. It's the deepest on the street because we're at the end of the system. Would it be acceptable to discuss with the contractor the possibility of doing the work over the ditch in such a way that it is parkable? For example, using the geocell drainage system over the under drain.
It's probably a question for you, Scott. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, it can be done. You know, that green belt's only 10 foot wide, so it's not very wide. I'll tell you that geocell system is a very expensive system. But it can be done. You know, it's a permeable, we call it permeable pavers because, you know, it will permeate through there. But again, it's a very expensive system.
And just to be clear, that would be an expense that would be above and beyond what the city would pay. So if we did agree to do that, the incremental difference would have to be covered by you and not the city.
Yes, I understand that. I'm not interested in a very expensive system, but I would like to like a little more information at some point on how very expensive is defined. That's $500 a foot or $10 a foot. I don't. That would make a difference whether I even bring it up with a contractor.
Yeah, that's something we could entertain, but you know, it'd be more in the future. But once this moves down the road a little bit, I'm not intended.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the chat? I answered the question already in the Q&A. Is there any other comments, questions for the public hearing for Cambridge? Are there any more questions or comments? Okay, well, I will be closing the public hearing then. Now we're going to move to the public comments for the items on the agenda. So these are items that would be under action requests. And this is where you would be able to make your comments about cannabis. We're going to start with people that are in person first, and then we're going to go to Zoom question and answer section, not the chat, but through the Q&A. And then we'll go to the public comments that were submitted, and that will be read into record. Did I get them all?
And Madam Mayor, prior to opening up the public comment, if I could just kind of give a little bit of introduction, because I believe most people are here this evening to discuss the cannabis issue. And I did want to give a little bit of background of how we got here and what this means should this move forward. So the marijuana has been in Michigan, has been legal in Michigan since 2008 with a medical marijuana ballot initiative that passed. Under that initiative, communities were by default opted out of the medical marijuana business unless they elected to opt in. In November of 2018, there was a ballot initiative proposal 1 that decriminalized and allowed for recreational cannabis in the state of Michigan. That language was different than the medical language because by default, communities were opted in unless they did something in the affirmative to opt out. The state gave, the proposal gave the state approximately 1 year to get rules and promulgated and a procedure in place before they began accepting applications. Upon passage of that, the city of Lathrup Village did enact an ordinance opting out, but included in that ordinance a sunset provision so that the city could come back and revisit. At that time, it was 18 months. The thought process behind that was that the city did not want to be the first one to open up a cannabis facility, and they were going to let some of the other communities take that first step and see what happened. When that 18 months expired, there unfortunately had not been a whole lot of cannabis facilities that had been opened because there were some delays at the state level in terms of accepting applications and issuing licenses. So the decision was made last July to extend that sunset provision for an additional 12 months. At the same time, City Council began exploring the possibility, should upon expiration of that sunset, should they wish to authorize or allow for various facilities within the community. They did direct myself and the planner to begin drafting ordinances and zoning ordinances that would set up the framework for those types of businesses. And so that's precisely what you have in front of you this evening. There are 2 ordinances. The first one is the general ordinance, which is the Chapter 18 ordinance. That sets forth the framework identifying the number of licenses, the type of facilities. Currently, there are, in this ordinance, it's identifying 2 physical locations for dispensaries, either medical or recreational. It does allow for co-located facilities, meaning 1 physical location with both cannabis, I just got louder, with cannabis as well as, with recreational cannabis as well as medical cannabis combined in 1 physical location. That, again, I can't emphasize, it's limiting to 2 physical locations. The city does not envision any more than 2 potential provisioning centers. The city is also contemplating allowing 2 testing facilities within the city. One of the big things in this ordinance is that by enacting this ordinance, it's setting the framework in place, but it's not necessarily opening the doors to start accepting applications. This ordinance does specify that the city will, by separate resolution, should this ordinance be passed, by separate resolution, the city could establish a time period, which is 30 days, which would be a time period of 30 days established by resolution of when the city would begin accepting applications. The city would also, by separate resolution, be identifying and accepting the scoring matrix, which will be utilized to determine whether or not, which applicants.
It's on this little pad.
That's right here.
Sorry.
So separate, I can turn my mic on if you want, or bring it up.
One
I
moment.
could talk into it.
We can hear you,
So
Scott.
there
We
would-
can hear you, Scott. Scott, we can hear you. Scott, we can hear you.
Okay.
You don't need to.
That's good. So that scoring matrix would be a separate resolution, and that's how these applicants are going to be scored and prioritized as to who has the highest score, and the highest scoring applicants would be the ones that would move forward for potential licensure in the city. The zoning ordinance is separate, but that's also up this evening, and that deals primarily with the site regulations and the on-site specifications that comparable to what any other business in the city would be required to do, and the standards that they would be required to meet in order to open one of these types of facilities. The zoning ordinance also identifies the areas in the community where these businesses would be allowed to operate based on setbacks from facilities such as parks, schools, adult shelters. Yeah, I think that's parks, schools, and shelters. That's the big one. So with that, like I said, I just wanted to clarify that should these ordinances pass this evening, that does not necessarily mean that cannabis businesses will be opening up tomorrow or lining up at City Hall to file their applications. There would be additional steps required of City Council before that would be the case.
And that would be where City Council has to approve having marijuana in the city, period, correct?
Correct. They would have to, in addition to approving the resolution, opening up the application period and approving the resolution, identifying the scoring criteria, they would also have the final say once all the scoring was done, the rankings were made and presented to council. It's very similar to our package alcohol and on-site alcohol licenses. The city would have the final say as to if they wish to grant that license.
Thank you. So now we'll go into the public comments. Each person is limited to 3 minutes only. After your 3 minutes, your mic will be muted, or if you're in person, then just be asked to stop. So who do we have first? If you come in and you would state your full name, your address if you want to, but at least your full name.
My name is Mary Manukian, 18194 Redwood Avenue, Lathrup Village. I just have some comments to make. A few years ago, we all had a packed town hall where the majority of the people discussing cannabis were against it. So I don't understand how we got to this place. You keep saying, you know, you're not planning on it, and you have to do this and accept licenses, but yet I'm hearing They're trying to get into the Skyway building and relocate the Russian dance ballet. They're trying to buy Dr. Geller's office. Both are one street away from me. Okay, and this is a good source. Okay, I'm not just blowing it off the top of my head. Southfield Road has already got horrendous traffic. If we have these dispensaries on Southfield Road, we're not only going to have way more traffic, we're going to have people cutting down the side streets to try and get to 12 Mile, because both of them are at Wiltshire. And so now you're going to have increased traffic cutting through the neighborhood, increased wear and tear on the roads that all of us are now paying almost $4 million to repair. And I just feel like I would ask City Council to try and think about what the residents want, try and let us have a voice in this. This is a city is tiny. It's going to affect all of our way of lives. It's on a daily basis. I mean, it's something we should all have a voice on. So I'm asking that you would put it on the ballot in November and let us all vote on it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm yay or nay against marijuana. You can get, you know, cream, medicinal cream anywhere you want. There's home delivery available for the other stuff. I don't understand why we have to have it in this little tiny city. My neighbor was on the committee. Unfortunately, he was the only person against putting cannabis dispensaries in the city, Don. So now we have people voting on it that were on the cannabis committee that were all pro marijuana. So I don't understand how we're going to get a fair vote out of it when people on the committee were pro marijuana and now they're going to vote on it. So I guess we can guess which way they're going to vote. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Bo Tamarelli. I live at 1845 Dolores, and I think most of you received the letter I'm going to read. I was part of a neighborhood group that collected 440 residents' petition signatures. The petition was submitted to the Lathrup Village City Clerk for your review and consideration. The petition asked you not to approve any changes to zoning ordinances that would allow cannabis businesses in Lathrup Village or put it to a vote. We, the residents, want to convey that we do not want cannabis businesses in Lathrup Village. We haven't understood why Lathrup Village Council has worked so hard to allow 2 recreational, 2 medicinal, and 2 other cannabis facilities to operate via proposed ordinance changes. We have come to understand that the charter language may need to be, we have come to understand that charter language may be needed to supersede ordinance language to prevent cannabis businesses within Lathrup. As stated in our petition, we ask you to make the proposed charter changes to not allow cannabis businesses to operate in Lathrup now and in the future. We also know that an outside entity, not residents of Lathrup Village, submitted a fraudulent pro-cannabis business referendum petition to council. That now rejected petition highlights the importance of listening to the voices of the people who signed our grassroots, neighbor-driven petition. The majority of people in Lathrup Village do not want cannabis businesses located here. I personally spoke to probably 150 or 180 people, and easily 85% of those people agreed and signed our petition. In summary, we have interpreted your actions as saying yes to cannabis businesses in Lathrup Village. Our petition effort was assembled quickly, without outside money interests or paid civil law attorneys, because we see our council moving quickly to make ordinance changes to allow cannabis here. If this ordinance language today is deemed needed as a temporary measure, to protect us from outside interests wanting to sell cannabis here, you must commit to us and at least 30 people that are downstairs and the 440 people that signed the petition, commit to us and our fellow citizens that you will follow this language that you approve later today with permanent ordinances and charter language making all cannabis business illegal in Lathrup Village.
Thank you.
And we, the citizens of Lathrup Village, will then vote to approve those charter changes.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Martha Mack. I live at 18200 Glenwood Avenue, the second house behind the post office. So I want to tell you my concern, which is going to lead into my next topic that I would like to discuss, is the lack of police handling situations on a Friday evening. And I am very concerned, being 2 houses off of the alleyways, that we're going to have issues here. I don't care if anybody wants to do it. I don't care. That's none of my business. I don't want it near my house, and I don't want the traffic. That's all I have to say about that.
Say your name and then.
Hi, I am Kathleen Graham. I'm from 634 West 9 Mile Road in Hazel Park. I am a certified hospice and palliative care registered nurse and the clinical director for Hyatt Cannabis. I've cared for patients as a nurse for the past 20 years throughout the state of Michigan. I was a hospice case manager in 2008 when our laws changed allowing medical cannabis, and after 12 years left hospice as a regional manager to come to Hyatt. From my personal experience, I have seen medical cannabis accomplish many things, including control nausea, stimulate appetite, ease muscle spasms, decrease pain, and improve ability to sleep. While it is not perfect, these new cannabis business laws are a big step forward. These laws will ensure a system where all cannabis medicine is tracked from seed to sale that will allow for recalls if problems are detected. Secure transportation. All cannabis products will be tested. They will have accurate, useful labels with independently verified information, which is needed to help guide both medical teams and patients in making informed choices. All of this helps to minimize the chance any would end up in the street, and at the same time ensuring a more pure and consistent product for the patients. Products we carry at Hyatt have helped people improve in functionality, decrease or stop opioids, and have improved quality of life. Hyatt carries a wide selection of products that focus on medical to meet the needs of the patients. Meeting the needs of the patients like Madison. When I started working with Madison, her functionality was minimal. She was in a wheelchair and not able to enjoy traditional childhood activities. She has sickle cell disease. Her red blood cells are irregular and die early, causing obstruction, cutting off circulation. In addition, there are not enough red blood cells to carry oxygen she needs. Lab values like a high reticulite count in sickle cell disease indicate sickle cell crisis. A crisis is extremely painful and life-threatening. In March, Madison's reticulite count was over 9. In June, after being on CBD and cannabis for 3 months, her reticulite counts have decreased to a little over 2. Excessive iron can damage the gastrointestinal system, causing nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pain, and weight loss, and cause fatal damage to the liver, pancreas, heart, or brain. Within 60 days of starting CBD and cannabis, her ferritin, which is restored iron levels, dropped from 1,708 to 867. The wellness plan that we developed for Madison has improved her quality of life, increased her activity and mobility. These indicators of improved quality of life can be seen in her functionality and her lab values, not to mention her smiles and laughter. I believe allowing licensed cannabis businesses in the community will mean thousands of local residents with serious disease will finally be able to acquire the quality medical cannabis their their doctor and care team recommends. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Interesting, you should say that. My son is in the hospital right now with sickle cell crisis, so I understand, but we'll talk about it more during our public comment. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Richard Bell. I live at 27551 Rackham in Lathrup Village. I looked over all of the information and I had a couple of questions. Number one, in location of this, it sounds like it's going to happen. When a facility is located, do the people adjacent to that facility have the ability to nix that location?
So I will just reiterate that during the public comment is not going to be the
Well,
dialogue.
just think about that.
Okay, but we'll write it down.
Don't answer the question.
Oh,
Just
okay.
realize that if you have a business right next to where it would be located, do you have any rights to say no to that? And number two, and as importantly, what businesses are we excluding once a location has been located? It now means for 1,000 feet, certain businesses cannot be included. Have you a list of the type of business, not just a school or whatever? I think that should be considered by the council before they make a decision. Thanks.
Why? The car's on. Is there someone else in the hallway? Okay. So we're gonna keep the hallway clear, please.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Who's next? I'm gonna let everyone else that goes first, if that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, but if you have something to say, you have something to say, you didn't say anything. You haven't spoken yet, right?
No, but it's okay. You guys go ahead. I'm good.
You sure?
I'm positive.
Okay, then we'll do repeats after we get the first people to come through.
No repeats.
No, okay. Didn't she already speak? Oh, okay.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Lisa Kurzinski, and I'm a resident and disability commissioner for the city of Westland. Westland has recently approved cannabis dispensaries, which I believe will truly benefit our residents, including our disabled residents. Because cannabis is known to help chronic pain, including migraines, and also helps with epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, cancer ailments, PTSD, depression, anxiety, and insomnia, to name a few. My personal experience with medical cannabis started for me in California in 2010, where I am born and raised. FDA medications had failed me with my pain from chronic migraines, so it was time for me to look for another alternative way for my pain relief. I grew up during the era of just say no, which included cannabis use. I was brainwashed into thinking cannabis would be harmful to me and lead to it as a gateway drug. This could be farther from the truth. After doing my own research, I decided to try medical cannabis to help control my pain with chronic migraines. Cannabis has helped me tremendously with no bad side effects or concern for addiction. I urge you to do your own research if you have any doubts and just keep an open mind. There are many ways to use cannabis besides just smoking it. This includes vaping, topical ointments applied to the skin, transdermal skin patches, edibles, capsule forms, and then they also have CBD products as well for human and pet consumption. Any city willing to consider adoption of cannabis dispensaries would greatly benefit from a cannabis RN to assist their medical patients to choose the proper cannabis strain and ways to use cannabis properly. I recently visited the Hyatt in Hazel Park, and I was impressed by their professional staff in cannabis RN. I thought that having a cannabis RN on staff was such an innovative idea, one that other cities should adopt. Also consider that the revenue from cannabis sales can help be reinvested within your community. I hope tonight that my personal testimony about medical cannabis will persuade you to consider adopting a cannabis zoning ordinance for your city. I promise you won't regret it. As always, I do advocate for responsible use of cannabis, just like with alcohol. And I personally do not use alcohol, but I feel that I would not ever want to take someone else's freedom to use alcohol away from them. And the reverse is true for cannabis. Thank you for your time and listening to me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Bill Cousins. I am considered a subject matter expert in the area of cannabis and cannabis facilities and security. I have clients in 5 states. I represent the majority of the large institutions, cannabis institutions. There's 2 points I'd like to make at this meeting. First of all, as a professional, and I'm a retired Secret Service agent, as a professional, I can tell you properly introduced and enforced, and I've had a chance to take a brief review of your ordinances. Cannabis facilities are perfectly safe. They actually add to the security of the neighborhood. With the security technology that they add and so forth that's required, good, responsible cannabis businesses go far and beyond the state and local requirements. Now, my client, Hayat, who I'm here with today, I've done several projects with them. They have always gone above and beyond what was required. They have made the neighborhoods safer. They have become good community, corporate citizens of the community. So I'm here in support of that and to try and put rest some fears of the residents that this is a positive thing. Your ordinance is very well written. You've done a nice job with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, please. Is there someone else in the? Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, my name is Craig Aronoff. I'm an attorney that specializes in cannabis. My office address is 1212 South Washington in Royal Oak, Michigan. I represent Hyatt Cannabis and have had the pleasure of being before you many, many moons ago when you first started discussing it, and had the pleasure of discussing what kind of options that we've seen around the state. In the period of time that you've taken to study it, and I want to give credit to the city, you've really gone to great lengths to interview people within the industry, look at people in other cities, talk to your peers in other cities, whether they're council members or police officers in those cities that have already embraced cannabis throughout Michigan. And for your benefit of your citizens, they need to understand the effort that went into the backing of this ordinance and the effort to talk to those other communities and really learn about the value of this type of ordinance in your community. Marijuana is already here. It's already legal in the state of Michigan. As you've already indicated, your community voted 60% in favor of it, and it's going to be around you whether or not it's in your city or not. The key is putting an ordinance together that allows you to control it and at the same time benefit from the economic benefits that it has. There'll be investment in at least 2 buildings, maybe up to 4 if the safety compliance come in. There'll be, as Mr. Cousins just discussed, the security at these facilities actually provides basically a bubble around them. There's cameras that are facing out that have to provide clear pixelation for anybody nearing and walking near the buildings. Another point to make too is throughout the state of Michigan, no community that has embraced it has really pulled back on it. They've actually expanded their programs. Talking with chiefs of police and other communities, they don't find that the fear or the concern of that reefer madness and all this, the zombie apocalypse type of thinking has not actually occurred. A lot of the communities that have embraced it have had a very positive benefit. I was visiting a client in the UP recently, and the restaurants next to the store are all thriving because people are going and visiting the other, businesses that are in those communities. We're seeing that in the UP. We're seeing that, from the Ohio border, Hazel Park, where Hyatt has its corporate headquarters. They too have embraced it. They've actually expanded their program 2 times over and continue to offer, licenses to new companies and individuals. So we're really pleased that you're considering it. We want to offer ourselves as experts to continue the dialogue. If you have any other questions, we'd invite you to reach out from an insider/cannabis perspective. And having touched a lot of communities and talked to that have both embraced it and some that have passed on it, but are still reconsidering their decisions, and we're just having open dialogue. So again, thank you for your consideration, and hopefully we'll be able to be applying for applications soon.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Martin Sema, Hyatt Cannabis, 634 West 9 Mile, Hazel Park. First of all, I want to congratulate you guys on the great ordinance that you guys put together and all the hard work and the hours that was involved in it. I just want to talk a little bit about my company and what we've done in Hazel Park since 2017. We've taken buildings, rundown buildings, and projects that have cost us millions of dollars to renovate and operate. Our last project was 15 months ago, which we took an end of the park bar, which was the city's eyesore, and a project that we invested about $1.7 million in. We have been involved extremely with the city since operations. We spent thousands of dollars giving back to the city in donations, sponsorships, a Promise Zone, which is an educational program that helps keep kids in college. We've created over 130 jobs in the past 7 months. Minimum wages starting from $17 an hour, all the way salaries to up to $150,000. That's what cannabis brings to your community. We've changed lives, many lives. We've offered free consultations to patients, seniors, free deliveries to medical patients and seniors, discounts on medical products, free products for a few patients that couldn't afford and needed the product. So this is what cannabis, this is what good applicants should and will bring to your city. This is what we hope to bring to your city. I love this city. Both my wife and I graduated from Lathrup. My wife has been working in the city for 27 years. I look to bring above and beyond to the city of Lathrup. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Troy Wymore, resident of Lathrup Village and a concerned citizen. And let me just bring up my notes here. Technology issue. I just want to say that there's been quite a lot of talk about people who are against medical marijuana or just recreational marijuana. And many of them have never visited one of these establishments and make a large point of saying that they haven't done this. I have been to one of these establishments, a couple of them, and I just want to say that they're very attractive businesses. They resemble a cosmetics counter at Macy's. They're very clean. They're much cleaner than some of the businesses that I see in Lathrup Village along Southfield. And I just think that we would benefit a lot from having one of these businesses in Lathrup Village. And as was noted before, one of the residents said, I would not want to take away someone's right to purchase what is legal in Michigan, just like for alcohol. And some of, like, I wouldn't purchase grain alcohol, but that is legal to go to the liquor store here and do so. Anyway, that's basically, I I think, all I want to say. It's just that it's an attractive business. We should consider it. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Hello, all.
Oh.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak for a couple of moments on behalf of Hayat Cannabis. I'm a patient of Hayat Cannabis and their medical cannabis, but particularly am grateful for Dr. Kathleen Graham and her guidance with regard to cannabis, because of the growing aches and pains and muscle spasms that are coming with, to some extent, age and diabetes. I also, at the time when I broke my shoulder in 2019, used medical cannabis. And the reason I bring that up is because of the tremendous distinctions that I learned about between the other cannabis shop that I had used when I broke my shoulder and Hayat. And as an aside to let you know, in addition to my personal experience with Hayat as a patient and with Kathleen Graham, I also work with the city of Hazel Park occasionally on communications. And in the time that I've been doing so, I have been struck by the remarkable presence and transformation of the property at 634 West 9 Mile Road, which is where Hayat Cannabis is located. They took one or two buildings, transformed them, immediately elevated the property values along that stretch of 9 Mile Road, and have become a good corporate citizen in giving back to the community, working with the city and alleviating any difficulties with traffic and parking because of the layout of the facility. And with regard to the facility itself, I was stunned at, frankly, the beauty and the well-organized and secure aspects of the dispensary itself. And it really made a remarkable impact on me, A, because of what one may think of in general of cannabis dispensaries, and B, particularly compared with the one I went to when I broke my shoulder in 2019. I can't speak highly enough of them as a patient, and what I've learned working with and floating in and out of Hazel Park, and I urge your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Loretta Danforth. I live at 27922 California Drive, Northeast. I am pro marijuana in every aspect. My husband used it as he was going through chemotherapy with cancer. I use it to sleep. He uses edibles. But the fact of the matter is, I don't understand the rush to installation, not the rush to judgment, but the rush to install 2 facilities that will dispense marijuana and the 2 facilities to test it. I don't understand your rush to do that. You have a body of people, your community is telling you. Some people are saying they don't want it, some people say they want it. The bottom line, the people are asking you to please let the community decide, not you, let the community put it to a vote. I do not understand your rush to install these facilities in such a small, family-oriented community? You say the revenue is what you're interested in. I'm a professional, I'm a retired professional. My research has shown me that this panacea of money that you're expecting to come in, that's not what happens. So please, let the community decide for itself by putting it to a vote. We don't need a rush to install these facilities when people are telling you, wait, let us look at it, let us vote on it. I implore you to listen to the people who live here. You've had all these beautiful, well-dressed professionals come in who don't live in Lathrup, talking about the merits of marijuana. That's wonderful. Marijuana is a wonderful thing. It's helped plenty of people. Your community is telling you, please let us decide. Let us put it to a vote. Do not rush. I've been here 32 years, okay? And I'm asking you, I love this community. Let us decide, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Elsie Babcock, 27661 Lathrop Boulevard. I have also lived here for many years, 30 as a matter of fact. And I agree with everything that Loretta said and everyone else who talked about cannabis. We know medicinal benefits. All of us are intelligent. I work at Wayne State, but I've said this at other meetings. Number one, the saturation of these facilities. And you don't have to speak to that because I've done research, okay? Also, within this small 10.5 mile to 12 mile, okay? I don't know, I looked at your map. There are some charters on 12 mile. I'm not certain it's 1,000 feet distance to that charter, okay? I have nothing against medicinal marijuana. I'm just worried about our community and the number of facilities that we have close by. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeannie Barron. I live at 27270 West Golden Gate, and I am an attorney. I am practicing in Lathrup Village. I'm also a resident of Lathrup Village for about 28 years. You may have seen my husband is disabled. I walk all the time. It has always been my dream to run my business because I'm a partner and I'm looking for a site to run my business in the home and the community that I love. And that's obviously Lathrup Village. But if we are to put any kind of marijuana dispensaries, particularly two, in such a short area, Lathrup Village now doesn't become an option for me. Then I will look at some of the other areas. I'll look at Royal Oak. I'll look at Southfield. Yes, they have cannabis there, I understand that, but I won't have to have it concentrated in such a small area. I was part of the petition drive and I loved it because I got a chance to meet the wonderful residents that we have here in Lathrup Village, incredible residents. And I will tell you that of all of the people that I talked to, only one person would not sign the petition. At worst, people said, we want to have a vote. Maybe I'm going to support it, maybe I'm not, but we want to have a vote. As an attorney, I am offering you pro bono my services to help draft any kind of charter amendment. I would work with Scott. I will do whatever it takes in order to make sure that we have something that the residents can vote on. I think it's important that we listen to all of the residents. We've had a lot of talk from people who are non-residents. Listen to the residents. It's time that we give them the right to vote. whatever it takes. Again, I'm happy to do it. And I thank you for your attention and your patience.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marvin Hardy, 2765 Lathrup Boulevard. I've heard a lot, and I agree. It's a big issue. But bigger than that is the people. People speak, people vote, people make a difference. And right now, we're trying to make a difference for Lathrup Village. Lathrup Village has history, heritage, and has standards. I heard medical marijuana, that cannabis. I didn't hear recreational marijuana. Mine, Celine's, and Byron, my neighbor across the street, our mailbox, a few weeks back was knocked over. Driver came flying through Lathrup Boulevard. Just the other day, I stepped out on the front porch, car driver right past the stop sign, flying through Lathrup Boulevard, 50 miles per hour. Lathrup Boulevard is a small street. In this area, I agree with the attorney. We have a number of places we can get this stuff. I understand that we want revenue, but Lathrup Boulevard, Lathrup Village rather, has heritage. The question is, what is the future going to look like when we start establishing these facilities and we're not sending a clear message on where we stand? So I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jared Kirchner. I'm going to be a little bit blunt with people tonight, no pun intended. I am for cannabis in pretty much every respect, both in hemp and marijuana. I've already sadly made a few enemies just for voicing my opinion downstairs. I was booed and told to leave and told to keep my opinion to myself. And that actually makes me a little bit sad for the community. And the truth is, I could care less if I have a dispensary that I could access in this community. I work at LiveWell Enlightened Health. It's a cannabis industry. I've got my hands in marijuana all day. In fact, I probably smell like pot right now. If you walked by my house in the evening often, you've probably seen me smoking out on my porch. But the reason I say I don't care so much whether or not we have a dispensary here is because I can go anywhere else and get it. The problem is the stigma I see around marijuana in this community. I think of this community as a progressive community, as a people who cares about it, as a community of people who care about each other, who support each other, in many different ways. I've seen a lot of people around the community who use marijuana medicinally and recreationally, myself included, in both ways. And I just want to ask you, if you're against a marijuana facility in your community, but you say you support marijuana, is that really the truth? Because if you support something but you don't want it in your community, clearly you have some type of issue with it. And if you have an issue with marijuana like that, why don't you have it with liquor? We have a liquor store down the corner that has enough liquor in it to kill probably hundreds or thousands, maybe thousands of people. It's poison. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with the liquor industry. What's wrong is the stigma that people are seeming to elicit against marijuana. And I think that's very sad. Like many people have mentioned here, it's a medicine, but it's also recreational. Thousands of people, tens of thousands, die every year to alcohol poisoning. You know how many people died in the history of mankind of marijuana from overdose? 0. You cannot overdose on it. Yes, it changes your state of mind, and that can be a danger, but I ask you, please see if you're subscribing to a stigma, because I think you are if you're against it. And that's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Caitlin Danforth, as you probably already know. I live at 18750 Glenwood Boulevard. I've been a Lathrup Village resident for 27 years, so obviously the majority of my life. I'm also a registered nurse. I was an ICU nurse at Beaumont. I was a nurse at Carmana's Cancer Institute, and I was a night on-call nurse for a hospice agency. I was solely responsible for over 60 hospice patients from 5 p.m. to 8:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. Many of the patients I've encountered at these settings use cannabis, and it was very helpful to them. I have beloved personal contacts with PTSD from extensive military service and multiple tours overseas. As my mom Loretta stated, my dad is a cancer survivor, and they use cannabis products, and it's very helpful to them. I have suffered with excruciating migraines since childhood. I have anxiety and occasional insomnia. I've turned to cannabis products occasionally when my prescriptions failed me, which I purchased at a dispensary. I've used cannabis products, and it was very helpful to me. I have tons of friends who use it recreationally. I'm pro-marijuana. I'm anti-dispensary in Lathrup. This conversation is not about whether I've been to a dispensary or how I feel about marijuana. It's about only whether I feel this is the right business for the community that I love dearly, and I don't feel that it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
So nice to see you when you're downstairs watching. And do I just get started? Okay, I'm Nancy Griffin. I live at 19350 Rainbow Drive. I've lived in Lathrup Village, 2 houses for 36 years. And I had no intention of speaking, so I'm just going off the cuff. But I was downstairs and I was listening to all these people who don't live in Lathrup talking about how great having cannabis, pot stores, whatever, will be in Lathrup. And I'm a person that loves the city. I mean, it's my heart. I love it. We could live anywhere, and we choose to live here. And I just, as long as I've lived here, we've talked about the Southfield corridor, making it more beautiful, more family friendly. I just don't see dispensaries being there. So why I'm here, why I came up those stairs is to just say, please listen to the citizens. I actually went out with the petitions, met some neighbors, 36 years, I met a whole bunch of neighbors I've never met before. Wonderful, wonderful people, all ages, all kinds of people. And I was really surprised how all of them, regardless of their feelings about marijuana, did not want dispensaries in Lathrup. And I go back to the meeting a couple of years ago. I was here with a big crowd, and I felt like it was the same back then. And so I'm appealing to your hearts and to just really, you're Lathrup citizens. I think most of you, I don't know that all. And just really put this before the people and really listen to the people, because I think they really care about this issue and care about what's in our neighborhoods. So thank you so much.
Thank you. There's someone else.
Hi, it's me again.
But before you go, is there, because we had 30 people that was.
So I waited downstairs and she does not want to speak. I told her she needs to speak and she does not want to.
But is there anyone, the only reason I'm asking is because I know when I was down, there was 30 people that had signed up to speak, and I just want to make sure everyone has a first time to go. I'm just asking.
I'm gonna assume, I don't know. I'm not running.
I understand there's 3 more people in the audience who are signed up to speak.
All right.
Okay.
You're up. Thank you.
Okay. Hi again, I'm Martha Mack, and I live at 18200 Glenwood Boulevard. I want to tell a situation what happened on a Friday night in May. Behind the chiropractic office, there was a party. The party started out with 2 cars. Now my husband and my son, who's 23, who's finishing up Michigan State, we were all outside having a beer. We heard the loud bass. We know the cars that are back there. I just went, I'm good. My husband went, he's good. And I said, no, this is not right. We called the police. The police came out, Officer Lask, then asked us, are you sure that they don't own the business or they have a permit for this party? And I said, well, according to remembering back, I didn't think that they allowed alleyway parties. And he said, it's not an alleyway. And I went, well, I don't think you've lived in Lathrup long enough to know that, because we all know what a parking lot and an alleyway is. Anyways, they went over and told them to turn down the music. They said that they were having a party because of COVID and the grandmother was afraid of COVID. I found out from my other neighbor who did not want to get involved that the kid's mother said, I don't want the kids over. He went over, told him to turn down the music. When he told me, do they have a permit or do they own that business? I said, am I seriously hearing this from you? And he would not back down. We left, came home at 10:30, and there were 12 cars. They were grilling on the back of Odell's Chiropractic back door with flames. They had dragged over their Costco table, set it up. They were having a huge party. We called again at 10:30. The other officer came over and said, I think you're making more noise than they are. And I said, would you like someone to be on your property when you're gone? They went over. Eventually they dispersed. They were not loud. That's not my point. But they had a grill. They dumped out the grill. I know this because we walk our dog. They dumped out the grill and they used their garbage bin to throw out their garbage. So I called Bruce. Bruce tells me this. I emailed all of you. Bruce was the only one who was in touch with me. Never heard back from anyone. And this does have, my other point is, you were extremely sympathetic about the alleyway. But now I find out that you want to rezone some alleyway, and I'm wondering if we can do that, because this goes on all the time in the alleyways.
So, I mean, you're at your time, but I would like to talk to you later because I'm totally confused on what happened. And also to know where you sent the email, because I respond to every single email, so concerned about that. So can you hang back?
I can.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the hallway? No. Okay, so we're going to the Q&A first, right? Is that what we said? Yes, okay. First person up for the Q&A was Kenneth Bryant. You see him in the audience?
He has a typed comment.
Oh, he's typing it?
Well, there's a typed question.
I see him. Do you want me to allow him to talk?
Yeah, unless he just wants us to read the question. You can allow him to talk, or you can read it. It's up to him.
I can't. He doesn't have.
Would you like me to read?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Yes, my name is Kenneth Bryant, South of Lathrup alumni, 2001. Just wanted to comment about, just reminding people that Lathrup had one of the highest approval ratings in the state of Michigan. There's a lot of fear of the unknown. Where people are thinking the worst is going to happen. And most times, once a cannabis company opens up in that town, the citizens see that there's nothing near what they thought the fears was going to be like. So of course I'm in support, but I had a question just about the ballot initiative versus the ordinance. I just heard comments before where Lathrup was kind of considering saying, well, if we adopt the cannabis ordinance and allow cannabis businesses in, can we as a city decide not to issue any of these licenses? And so I understand that that's a route that the city can take. My question is, as a cannabis business wanting to come back to Lathrup, is that the intention of Lathrup to just kind of pass the cannabis ordinance in order to block any ballot initiatives? Because I understand that with the ballot initiative, it takes the power away from the city council to kind of coordinate and orchestrate this thing. It gives it all to the ballot language. So that was pretty much my question. I'm not sure if it can be answered during this time, but that was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And after that, Lainey Dixon.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Lonnie Dixon, 18619 Middlesex Avenue, Fourth Lathrup Village. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I'll be very brief. So I've heard the terms heritage and community mentioned here about Lathrup Village, but what I am concerned about, I also share a concern about stigma around the use of cannabis. I've heard from my neighbors, I've talked to neighbors, I've listened to my neighbors here tonight, and I just hope that I hear repeatedly, listen to the citizens, listen to the citizens. But one thing I think that we're not considering is the stigma around citizens who are okay with this. So that is difficult to share that I support this, but I do. I support it from a revenue perspective. I also support it from the perspective of people being able to do what they want to do and whenever they want to do it. I've heard from families here that live in this community who have shared their use of cannabis for medicinal and recreational purposes. And so I feel like what you're saying is that you don't want people like you to be able to do what you do in your community. So that's just what I want to share. And I support this ordinance and for people's ability to do what they would like to do in this community and for what it can bring to our community. And that's my point.
Thank you. Next, we have Eric.
How you doing? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Eric Clark. I'm the CEO and founder of Quality Roots, a Metro Detroit-based cannabis operator. I just want to talk briefly about our group and the process that we've been tracking here in Lathrup Village. Number one, our family has a strong history in development and compliance. My family ran and operated Save More drugstores for over 42 years. I actually personally started a business in 2011 that was focused strictly on child development, which I'm still involved with today. The rest of our group's portfolio is based on development and compliance history, as mentioned, and our application has won multiple competitive license aspects here in the Tri-County area, most recently in Berkeley and Waterford, coming first place in both of those municipalities. I think it's very important for us to state that we are very excited to go through the application process and prove to the Lathrup Village residents, officials, and reviewers that we, the company Quality Roots, are doers, and we look forward to proving that. The communities in which we currently operate have seen strong community contributions in time, as well as the local DAs and arts and ballot initiatives. We believe that we have the best application to put forward here in the village of Lathrup, and we look forward to that process. I think it's also important that we note that right now is a perfect time for Lathrup to control this process, especially the city council. You guys want premier, state-of-the-art operators who understand medical practice as well as retail operations. Companies like Hyatt and Quality Roots are two of the most well-known operators in the state for those two regards. We look forward to collaborating further with the community, improving our existence, and also proving to the community that they have chosen the right operators by working with Quality Roots. We invite any resident out to our operating facilities to see what we are all about, to engage with any one of our patient care specialists, and to please ask us any questions on the engagement level at getqualityroots.com if there was any other future education that we can provide for any resident. Again, it is our interpretation to making sure that everybody is comfortable with this use and for everybody to understand that Quality Roots is one of the best operators to get people comfortable and practice. Appreciate everybody's time and look forward to the application process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Darlene. You see Darlene in the audience?
I think Kelda's bringing them in.
Oh, okay.
I can let her just.
There she is.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Yes, I just wanted to say that, well, first of all, Lathrop Boulevard, Oakland County. I have no problem with people using marijuana for medical purposes. I've listened to people and they say how it's helped them. My concern is having 2 dispensaries here within Lathrop Village. And I think that the people here should be able to vote on it, and that it's not something that a few members of city council can say yay or nay to. So my main point was that to be able to put it to a vote for people here living in Lathrop to vote whether or not they want dispensaries. And I also was unclear whether or not when it says 2 dispensaries, does that mean that each dispensary would have a medical side and a recreational side, so that there was actually 4 different selling spots within Lathrop? So I was unclear about that, but I feel that Lathrop Village is a small community, and that those types of facilities aren't really necessary here, considering we can go within a few miles of another city to get those. And so basically, I was just saying it should be put to a vote that let the residents have a say in whether or not they want to have dispensaries here in Lathrop. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Chris Aiello.
Good evening, could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Chris Aiello. I'm an attorney at 32411 Road in the cannabis industry. I represent many applicants who are looking for provisioning centers and recreational stores, won a lot of licenses, lost some licenses. As I scrolled through your proposed ordinance, I picked up the following hiccups that might lead you to defend your position in a court of law, which you don't want to get to. So just one comment, section 28. I've seen these clauses in other ordinances. I'm not sure where you're really setting up the insurance for, because you have governmental immunity. So section 28, if Mr. Baker, you want to take a quick peek at that. I'm not sure if those clauses are necessary in the entire state of Michigan. Moving down to section 18-288A, the most important part that you see throughout the state of Michigan. So as you probably are all aware, there are multiple counties and circuit court judges throughout the state of Michigan that have entered temporary restraining orders against cities. And they've entered temporary restraining orders against cities from enforcement of their ordinance because of the scoring criteria. Taking a peek at your scoring criteria under A, I would offer the following comments as an attorney who is actively engaged in multiple cities right now with lots of litigation, who has clients that want to participate and work in Lathrop Village but want a transparent and an ordinance that they feel will not take them to the Court of Appeals with anyone else that loses if they perhaps win. And so a quick cursory review would point to section B, Police Department approval. Just keep in mind, section 9 of MRTMA says one thing. The ordinance must select by competitive bid the best suited to operate in compliance with the act. The act is made up of 82 rules. 82 rules have nothing really to do with the police department. In fact, the police department's not named once in the 82 rules. Moving through your ordinance, going to section C. This one is a highly litigated criteria. Whether the proposed facility will revitalize or redevelop property that has been vacant or unused for an unextended period of time. That has no place in your ordinance. Beware Berkeley, beware Traverse City, beware City of Westland. They all had it, and Fort Huron. They're all under restraining orders as I speak to you right now. And that is
Thank you, Mr. Aiello. Thank you. Next, we have Greg Bruvalo. I know I just said Bruvalo. I'm so sorry.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor Garrett and City Council. My name is Greg Bruvalo. I'm here with Tom Bayer. We reside at 27641 Lathrup Boulevard. First and foremost, I applaud City Council for bringing this topic to the table. I understand the topic and vote this evening is to adopt an ordinance in the event we allow cannabis industry into Lathrup Village. This has been well vetted and not rushed, so kudos to you on that. I'd like to turn it over to Tom Bayer, who would also like to make some public comments on the topic.
Hello, City Council. My name is Tom Bayer. I have lived in Lathrup Village at 27641 Lathrup Boulevard for 21 years. And I've watched Lathrup Village change. Change is good, sometimes not. When I first moved here, Lathrup Boulevard was a gorgeous stretch of neighborhood yards that sprawled unending. And unfortunately, now I drive down a neighborhood full of rocks and reflectors and fields of stuff I'm not really sure what it is. So I don't want people to pretend that Lathrup Village is the same Lathrup Village that it was 30 years ago or even 21 years ago when I moved here. I applaud you taking your time on this. Marijuana's been legal in Michigan now for quite some time, and there is now federal legislation to legalize it. We do need the tax to be part of the tax revenue base that this has brought to many municipalities and the state of Michigan. I've been here through the good times and the bad times. At one point when we thought that Lathrup Village would be non-existent and absorbed by Southfield because we couldn't pay our bills. So Lathrup Village needs to continue to change for the better, lose stigmas, and realize all those that are, voting or saying that they don't have a problem with it, but just don't want it. The community adoptions that have taken place around us in several cities have shown positive results and none of the unfounded fears being suggested by the naysayers. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, we have Noah Harfoch. Hopefully I said that correctly.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, City Council, thank you for having me, and thank you for putting together a really well-drafted ordinance. My name is Noah Harfouche. I represent companies across the state of Michigan that apply for, and many of them have received state licenses for provisioning centers and recreational adult use marijuana retail businesses. One of my clients happens to be the owner of the liquor store in Lathrup Village, and they are very interested in expanding their business into Lathrup Village and applying for a medical and recreational cannabis license. The Davish family has done a lot of good in Lathrup Village, and based on their experience in the village, and we've heard from a lot of residents and a lot of outside businesses, we know how to do good business in Lathrop Village. And I believe that the city would benefit from having somebody that's already done retail business that is in a space that is regulated, like the liquor industry. As I see it, I do not think, however, that your ordinance is completely ready to be passed. I echo some of Mr. Aiello's comments regarding the litigation across the state of Michigan, I of which am involved in some of the lawsuits, and we're involved on both sides of the coin, where we have clients that have won licenses and are just waiting approval, and some clients that lost, but were not given the benefit of a competitive process. One of the things that I see in your ordinance is problematic for future litigation is the requirement to revitalize vacant property. That is something, again, that's being litigated currently across the state. And it is something that, if the city intends to move forward with marijuana, could be an issue and could essentially backpedal all of the work that you're doing for years to come before any progress is made. The reason that having a requirement like that is not something that the ordinance should have, nor should the scoring rubric have, is because under MRTMA, which is the law that preempts any ordinance with respect to the marijuana application process in a municipality, the thing is clear that the application process needs to be a competitive process, one which provides the ability for all applicants to compete against each other, and for the municipality to select an applicant that is best suited for complying with the act, being MRTMA. As it currently stands, we strongly feel that the ordinance itself should be finely tuned. I believe that Lathrup should look into some of the litigation that's occurring across the state and tune it so that it does not.
Your time is up.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Madam Mayor, can I just
one
second
second.
those last two comments?
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, is it possible for us to at least let the last two gentlemen finish their statement? Because when it comes to any kind of litigation, Scott Baker or whatever needs to probably state
I'm sorry
that.
to interrupt you again, but we're going to let our city attorney address it, and we will be done with the comments, public comments for this.
So just to address those last two speakers that spoke about the scoring criteria, this ordinance doesn't actually contain the scoring criteria. Well aware of what the restrictions are over that. It's a document that will be produced later and approved by resolution of council. In putting applicants on a level playing field, it's already been discussed as far as not limiting to only new properties or properties that are being redeveloped, but including those that are currently existing. So we are aware of that. This is not the scoring matrix, however.
Thank you. We have sat here for quite a while. I think that we're all going to take about a 5-minute break just to take care of some business. We will be back at 9:11. God forbid if I get that. Thank you for allowing us to take that quick rest. We appreciate that. So that's why it doesn't make sense, because it was not in the right. This is the right one. So we're finished with the public comments, and so we'll be moving on to our action items. That's right. Look at it. So we're down to 12, and the first one up is the Evergreen Farmington Sanitary Drainage District, Chapter 20, Section 471 Agreement.
Yes, the Mayor and Council, we have Gary Nigro from the Oakland County Water Resource Commissioner's office here with us as well. And if you recall, we've had a few meetings in regards to this, and this is where the Evergreen Farmington Sanitary District is being converted into the Sanitary District, Chapter 20 drain, and along with increasing the capacity, which will include the conversion of the sanitary retention tank for additional capacity as part of that system. And those additional costs, which are highlighted in the memo that's in your package. but I think Gary can go over briefly those details with you. Gary, are you still there? Thank you for sitting through the meeting this long. Hopefully you're still there and not asleep.
Yeah, Cheryl, I thought you got me earlier in the agenda. What the heck, man?
This was my version of early in the agenda.
Good evening. My name is Gary Nagro, and I'm a chief engineer at the Oakland County Water Resource Commissioner's Office. And I oversee the wet weather operations for our regional sanitary sewer systems, as well as the construction management unit. And I'm here today to request your approval of the 471 agreement that's provided in your packet, I think. This agreement facilitates the construction of 4 projects listed in the corrective action plan, allowing the Evergreen Farmington sanitary drain to send additional wet weather capacity to the Great Lakes Water Authority, and thereby in turn allowing Lathrup Village to send additional flow to the Evergreen Farmington sanitary drain. The Evergreen Farmington sanitary drain, as Cheryl mentioned a minute ago, that was just recently created, serves 15 Oakland County municipalities. And the city of Lathrup Village discharges public sanitary sewage to the, and I'm going to just start saying EFSD instead of trying to say Evergreen Farmington sanitary drain, for ultimate conveyance to the Great Lakes Water Authority through the interceptor system down to what used to be Detroit Water and Sewer Treatment Plants. Now it's Great Lakes Water Authority. The EFSD is under an administrative consent order issued by Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. And the administrative consent order requires certain improvements to the EF system to reduce the occurrence of sanitary sewer overflows to the Rouge River system during wet weather events. The consent order corrective actions needed include purchasing additional outlet capacity from the Great Lakes Water Authority and construction of projects near 8 Mile and Evergreen Roads. These projects will allow a peak wet weather sanitary flow from the 15 communities to reach the outlet that drains the GLWA system. To facilitate these improvements, a new service agreement between the customer communities and the EF system is needed. And this agreement is authorized under Section 471 of the Michigan Drain Code. That's why I'm referring to it as the 471 agreement. But the agreement will replace the existing 1989 intermunicipal agreement and establish new community contract capacities and provide a means of financing and completing projects necessary to bring the system into compliance. So the city of Lathrup Village has its own ACO, which requires collaboration and participation in the EF SSO improvement projects. And we believe successful completion of these improvements will allow both the city and the Evergreen Farmington sanitary drain to fulfill their administrative consent order obligations. So we have met several times over the last year with both Cheryl Mitchell and Pam Bracci, as well as Scott Ringler from Giffords Webster, and have gone over some of these improvements kind of in more detail. So, but it's a collaborative effort between our office and all the customer communities. So I guess at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Have any questions from council? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adopt the attached resolution to approve plans and then estimate for I'm reading off the wrong one. I'm on the wrong page. Somebody else who's got it. Go ahead, Ian. I know you like to get in there.
Page 198.
Page 198. It's backwards. Thank you. No, not on my packet.
To approve the agreement and authorize the mayor and city administrator to sign any of the related documents.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of it for you.
Do you want me to do it?
Thank you.
All right, so I make a motion to approve the Evergreen Farmington Sanitary Drain Drainage District Chapter 20, Section 471 agreement, and authorize the mayor and/or city administrator sign any needed or related documents.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to mention a couple things. Part of this agreement is going to allow us, so for those that don't know, we have a very large tank. I can't remember, what is it, 6 million gallons, something like that?
3 million gallons.
How many?
3 million
Thank you.
gallons, yep.
Yeah, and one of the advantages of this arrangement is that we will be, well, what that tank does is essentially when we're during storm events bringing in wastewater and stormwater into our system, we're only allowed currently to outflow it to the Evergreen Farmington system at about, I think it's 3.35 cubic feet per second. And part of this agreement is going to allow us to up that to about 6, so almost doubling that. And the advantage of that is that, you know, if we are intaking it faster currently at a faster than 3.35 rate, that tank fills up and that sewage has got to go somewhere. And when we can't discharge it, it backs up into people's basements. So by doubling this, by doubling our rate of outflow, that gives us a much bigger buffer and much less of a chance of our own feces backing up into our houses. But the one thing I do want to mention as part of this, we have to invest about $500,000 into our tank because our tank is a little bit dated. It needs some updates, upgrades and some maintenance. I think one of the 4 pumps isn't working, needs to be replaced. So that $500,000 is part of the capital improvement bond that was part of what raised people's water bills. Now I know people, myself included, don't like paying a higher water bill, but this was one of many things that really needed to take place. And this is you know, a protection mechanism for all of our residents so that we don't have backups in our basement. So if we didn't do this and things started backing up in your basement, I think people would be a lot more upset than the, you know, few dollars that this is costing people on a monthly basis to make sure that we can outflow faster than we inflow. So just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Siddiqui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
and Councilmember Medley.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay,
Next,
thank
we
you,
have the
council.
resolution. Thank you. I'm sorry, Gary. Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good night. Next, we have the resolution to approve plans and estimate for ditch repair for Cambridge Boulevard and to direct city treasurer to make a special assessment role.
So I can introduce this one, Madam Mayor. As you heard, it seems like weeks ago, but earlier this evening, we did have the hearing on advisability and public comment. Because there are 13 parcels involved in this, our ordinance indicates that if the council receives objection from more than 30%, then and I think Bruce, Mayor Pro Tem alluded to this earlier, that the SAD would be abandoned and we would move on to the next on the list. Not having received the requisite number of objections to this, my recommendation would be to move this forward. Included in your packet, page 199-200 is the proposed resolution, which would accept and approve the plans and cost estimates that were presented by the city engineer. Also directs the city treasurer, who's the designated agent for the city assessor, because we don't have one, is directed to prepare the special assessment role based upon the cost estimate and the parcels that were included in the information provided by the city engineer. This also will schedule a second public hearing for confirmation of the role that public hearing will be held on August 16th. Again, individuals in that role can appear, protest, or file any objection. That public hearing will be, the objections received at that public hearing will be limited to the accuracy of the rule. So if your parcel is on Lathrup Boulevard, but somehow you ended up being included on the Cambridge SAD due to my poor typing, then you can come and object to that and we'll correct that. So again, that's scheduled to be the 16th of August.
I'll make a motion, this time on the correct page, which is the one that I was doing before, is to adopt the attached resolution to approve plans and an estimate for ditch repair for Cambridge Boulevard and to direct the city treasurer to make the special assessment roll.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. So as we go forward with the second reading for the residents, I know that we didn't have enough folks show up, to speak against this. How have they been notified of the special assessment? And then how will they be notified for the second opportunity to speak against? And my question is, sometimes people don't pay attention until it really gets close and it's really going to cost money. And so I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to be heard. So how will they be notified, or will we communicate with them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So we actually, in addition to publishing this in the local paper with these notices of public hearing were mailed directly to all 13 parcels, and that will also take place for the second public hearing. So that notice will go out, I believe, by Thursday of this week, and then those will also be mailed directly to those residents again.
And the only other question I would add to that as well is we oftentimes hear of the poor mail delivery service within Lathrup Village. Are we sending those first class certified?
They're sent first class. Hopefully we get them before the 16th.
Well,
Is there
a requirement that it has to be a certain number of days? It's like 14 days.
It's a minimum, under our ordinance, a minimum of 10 days in advance of them.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure folks here and know.
Any other questions, discussions? Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes. Yes.
okay. Councilmember Medley,
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And next we have the second reading ordinance to amend the City of Lathrup Village Code of Ordinance by adding Chapter 18, Article 6, Cannabis Business at a 6 rate. No, I didn't get that checked up. Okay, sorry.
So this is a new topic for this evening. This relates to the cannabis ordinance. This is the first of the two, as we referenced earlier. This is the general ordinance language that would address specifically the number of facilities, the criteria for those facilities, and then the procedure by which City Council will create a scoring matrix to rank the applicants, the procedure for the City Council to open up that application period, and then as well as the standards that are expected or potentially could be included in that scoring matrix.
Thank you. So that's just, yeah. So someone wants to make a motion for that one.
Where's the language?
Yeah,
It's on page 208.
I can make, because I have the change from the study session.
Okay.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve the ordinance to amend the City of Lathrup Village Code of Ordinances by adding Chapter 18, Article 6, cannabis businesses, with the change that we discussed in the study session in Section 12-288, subsection C, point B, changing the 80% requirement to 85%, meaning that applicants have to score at least 85% of the points.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make some points. I, in my usual long-winded way, have probably 5, 6, 7 minutes worth of stuff that I'd like to talk about. First off, there were a lot of comments made both today and at the Planning Commission, and then really a lot of them in the written comments that we received, talking about the speed of this process. So I want to talk a little bit about how this potentially legalizing cannabis in Lathrop came about, because this process has actually been going on in earnest with serious discussion for about 2.5 years now. Back in March of 2019, when recreational cannabis became legal, we purposefully opted out, as I think the attorney mentioned earlier in the meeting, opted out and sunsetted at 18 months. And we did this so that we would have 1.5 years to see the results of the early adopters, see what worked, what didn't work, what issues and what problems came up, and essentially give it time for enough data to be collected that we could then analyze it and make an informed decision for the city. Despite what some of the detractors are telling residents, I think council went into this with a very open mind. I know that I certainly did and hadn't made up my mind ahead of time. We established a cannabis committee with about 6 months left in that 1.5 year period to study the available data that was coming through, look at the potential fit for Lathrop, and to make a recommendation to council. They made their recommendation at the very end of the 18 months. And because of that, we decided to add another year to the process to extend the sunset so that we could further study the actual ordinances that were in place in the state, as well as outside of the state, so that we could really develop a potential ordinance that will work best for Lathrop. So during that 2.5 year process, residents had a countless number of opportunities to express their opinions, share their ideas, help form an ordinance, dissuade council from moving forward, request a citywide vote, and so on. There's been, as I said, there's been a lot of talk about how quickly and how rushed this process was, which actually made me go back and kind of wonder about the process itself, maybe second guess it a little bit. So I went back and I looked through all the city meetings that we had in the last year or so. And the number of meetings where we had cannabis on the agenda, specifically on the agenda as a discussion item, not just where meetings where cannabis was mentioned, but specifically on the number of on the agenda was substantial. If you go back and you look at the city council study sessions, going back a year to July of 2020, it was on the agenda on July 13th, July 27th, August 3rd, August 17th, September 14th, the 28th, October 19th, November 9th, November 23rd, December 7th, December 21st, moving into 2021, February 1st, February 22nd, March 15th, May 3rd. And if you add that up, that's 15 separate meetings. And those were just the study sessions. Now, if you add on top of that city council meetings, you have another 5 meetings where cannabis was specifically on the agenda and discussed. We had 6 marijuana committee meetings, and that's where the subcommittee met. And those meetings were specifically to talk about marijuana. So the whole meeting was addressed to that. We had 2 additional joint meetings, and again, no pun intended there, but those were meetings between the DDA, the Planning Commission, and the City Council. One of those was specifically about marijuana. The other one had marijuana on the agenda. In addition to that, we had 6 Planning Commission meetings. On top of that, we had a town hall, we had a cannabis open house, we had a Planning Commission public hearing, and a Planning Commission comment session. So there were 38 meetings in the last year where cannabis was a primary point of discussion. And all of those meetings were announced. I know a lot of people said, well, we didn't know about this and we had no way of knowing and we just found out about it. All of those meetings were announced using some combination of the following: the city calendar, the city website, the city Facebook page, the Villagers Facebook page, the weekly e-newsletter, the Your Town magazine, the Muni Code, the newspaper, and public access TV. And then after those meetings took place, the majority of them were recorded. And those meetings were played on public access TV. They're also, they were available and still are available on YouTube. The minutes of the meetings are available online. And for people, there's an argument for people who, don't have technology. All of those meetings are, the minutes are available at City Hall upon request. So I think it's really almost preposterous to suggest that this process moved too quickly or that the residents didn't have time for input. I think maybe things moved too quickly from when you specifically learned about it, but I think responsibly engaged residents, had more than enough time to provide input. And, our goal as a council, or not our goal, our responsibility as a council is to govern, and doing so, as the result of 11th hour complaints for or against any issue really is not a productive way to do so. And I say it all honestly, I really wish that somebody had come to one of our 38 meetings in the last year and said, hey, how about throwing this out to the voters? Because I think that's a great idea. Something that I wish we had thought of and discussed, and instead of kind of focusing our efforts on the ordinance itself. However, no one came to the meetings to suggest that, and now it's too late for the November ballot. And at this point, an ordinance is really necessary to be put into place as an effective deterrent against outside groups pushing charter amendments against us, and also, outside groups, forcing us, or I shouldn't say forcing us, but taking away our ability to regulate cannabis in the city. And I think a lot of people, I know it was mentioned earlier tonight, that there was a ballot initiative to add an amendment to our city charter to allow cannabis in a dramatically and more expanded way than is proposed in the ordinance that we've put forth. That also would have prevented the city from enforcing any regulation. This was going to be on the ballot. They had more than enough signatures until I noticed some irregularities and fraud that I turned over to the city attorney, or I should say potential fraud, turned over to the city attorney, and that forced that group to withdraw their petition. But I guarantee you that at the next election, after the November election, there will be another group putting a charter amendment on our ballot if we don't adopt an ordinance first, because that will act as a deterrent. In addition, our sunset ends in August, and as soon as that sunset expires, it's open season to issue licenses in the city of Lathrup. And I was actually talking to the city attorney a little bit earlier, and he said he would be surprised if there haven't been people who have already pushed for or submitted for a license, should that sunset expire. So for those that are opposed to the ordinance, should it pass tonight, I truly invite you to use the laws and the process and the timing to get an initiative on the ballot. You obviously have enough signatures, and get it on the ballot in the next election to support your views. That's what any resident should do. As far as my own opinions, I have not heard many arguments against cannabis yet tonight, or the Planning Commission, or from the comments that were typed in, that aren't stereotypes or fear-based. So, for example, I hear detractors constantly saying that our property values will plummet. That's not what the data, and that's not what the research shows, both within Michigan and within other states. There were a lot of comments made tonight that were, again, I think fear-based or stereotypical, like people, hanging out at the pot store, smoking outside. That can't happen. And if it does happen, that's why we have a police force to arrest those people for violating the law. That it's not safe.
For revoking the license.
What's that?
And a basis for revoking.
Yes,
the
and a
establishment's
basis
license.
for revoking the license if that happens too. They're not safe. They invite crime. Those buildings, based upon the way that we've written the ordinance, are going to be locked tight. Cannabis needs to be kept in a locked safe. That they're required to have video cams that are recorded and saved that view the entire building inside and out. There were comments, again, cut through traffic. How is that different from any other, if we have a popular restaurant that opens up, or any other popular business?
This is no longer about the ordinance, right?
What's that? Still about the ordinance.
Okay,
Yeah.
just making sure.
So I'm a data person, and the studies and research that I've read, along with the findings of the Cannabis Committee, lead me to believe that this will be good for Lathrup. It's change, and change is always scary, but Hopefully this will act as a catalyst for Southfield Road. Again, we see this in city after city, both within Michigan and without Michigan. Is it the best catalyst? Is it what I would have chosen as a catalyst? No. But this is something that could definitely work. We'll get some buildings that'll be renovated. We'll even bring in some well-needed revenue for the city. So, and then another point that was also made tonight. One of the speakers talked about that there's a stigma for those people that are pro marijuana or pro cannabis, and I think because a lot of that you don't hear a lot of the vocal support like you do for the side that is against cannabis. And I can say my experience, and I know I've talked to Councilman Siddiqui. We recently went door to door, and our experience was completely different from what those people who submitted the petition found. So because of this and some of these reasons, I will be supporting this ordinance tonight.
So my question is, by not and putting it on the record, not supporting this ordinance opens the door for ballot initiatives where someone else can write their own ordinance, correct?
Correct. I mean, by putting this on doesn't necessarily preclude anyone from submitting a ballot initiative, but the biggest thing, and what Mayor Pro Tem just identified, is that, and I unfortunately neglected to include this in my introductory statement, but the sunset provision does expire next month. And if there is nothing in place, then there are, and I did mention that by default, communities are opted in unless they have something in place otherwise. With nothing in place and the sunset expiring, then that is an opportunity for any type of cannabis facility that has a state license to operate within the city, and the city doesn't have a say on that. So it is important to have something in place, whether licenses are issued, whether the timeline is next month, 2 months, 3 months, however long it takes. I do think it's important to have something in place just to prevent that scenario from unfolding.
And by accepting this ordinance, it is not saying that we are accepting having any dispensaries or any type of cannabis operation in Lathrup.
It's not authorizing any licenses. It is saying that the city is open to issuing 2 licenses if this is the criteria that they have to follow. And so it does set the framework, but it doesn't, by any action tonight is not going to issue any licenses. There's nobody going to be lining up tomorrow to file their application. There won't be any cannabis businesses opening up tomorrow.
Right. And that for that to happen, those would be the resolutions that will be discussed at the August.
Correct. There's additional steps that need to take place before we can get to that point.
And so those are going to be the as you said, the resolutions that's going to come in August. So
at the earliest. So
well, yeah, at the earliest. But I'm just wanting to the passion that I saw tonight with a lot of residents, and when I was at Panera, is that for me, I was voted in by the residents, not my personal feelings, not my anything else. And so it's funny to me that everyone who is either pro or against, the majority was for whatever they were for. So I find that very fascinating because I'm literally looking at what we had tonight, and it's literally split right down the middle because I did do the scratch tally of what everyone was saying. And so it's this one is a tough one for me because I can't say that I am for a dispensary being in Lathrop. I get what we need as in revenue, but then my question is, how much really is the revenue that's coming in? And where is the data that shows how much a local city of our size in Michigan, what do they bring in? And I mean, these are just some of the questions that I have. And the other one for the putting to vote to the residents, that's due tomorrow to the Secretary of State, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and I would just say, if the only factor in your decision-making practice or process is the potential revenue, personally, I wouldn't do it because I mentioned it before. There are significant costs associated with these facilities, from the review component to the enforcement, the inspections. It's not going to make a bunch of money for the community. Maybe someday it will, but I wouldn't use it to balance the budget or rely on it as a significant source of income. So that I would take that out of your decision-making process.
Yeah, personally, for me, you know, I've seen, you know, I spent a lot of time in Colorado, about a month a year in Colorado, and I've seen what it's done in terms of catalyzing growth, you know, around these buildings as they open. And that, for me, that's the biggest positive. The revenue for me is last.
Right.
I think.
What size are these cities that you saw?
Silverthorne is probably about the same size as us.
Okay.
Several others similar. For me, that's acting as, I mean, we need something as a Southfield Road catalyst. And to me, I think this has the potential to get it started. For me, the second reason is because from what I've seen in Michigan and outside of Michigan, these businesses put a lot of money into their buildings. They put a lot of money into making them look good, keeping them up, you know, the upkeep. And again, that's what we need. Another example would be, having South the Road would be great. And then for me, revenue is third.
So if I could say something, I just kind of want to go back. We're talking about a couple of different things, and what we're really trying to address is the ordinance at this point. So I want to second what Bruce said, and the fact that this hasn't been a rush decision. And I spent time, as did two of the other council members, really digging into this and looking at all the angles. And when I joined that committee, I did not anticipate, you know, supporting it. I really didn't, because I felt like, you know, well, there's a lot of things I feel about it, but I did not feel that it was necessarily something that I saw for Lathrup Village as a potential. What really concerns me is the fact that this is an ordinance where we have the opportunity to self-govern. And so I feel that we need to have an ordinance so somebody doesn't get to come in and dictate what happens at Lathrup Village without city council and without the residents weighing in. And the fact that Kelly has tick marks, you know, I mean, we've been listening to residents, and it is a split issue, and it may need to be on the ballot. But without an ordinance and without that governing process, we're really kind of wide open. And so that is a concern for me. The second thing that is a concern for me is, you know, we heard tonight that those petitions were signed by a majority of residents. That's not accurate. They were signed by a group of residents. And so we haven't heard from everyone. So if it does end up on the ballot, everyone gets an opportunity, everyone gets to vote. But I also believe that, you know, did we vote on a Panera? Did we vote on a nail salon? Did we vote on, you know, a hair salon? We have ordinances in place that govern businesses. This is a business in the state of Michigan. So therefore, I don't necessarily think that individual people should get to vote on whether or not we have a business. You know, that'll be something that if the residents bring it forward and they want to do a petition, fine. But I think that you have to have rules that are consistent across all legitimate recognized businesses in order not to open yourself up for litigation. And so what has been really interesting is the passion that folks felt. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it was a hat shop, or if it was an ice cream shop, or if it was a donut shop. And the other side of that is I completely understand that, you know, and what people want, where they choose to live, and in their neighborhood. But I think it's really short-sighted for us not to approve an ordinance where Lathrup Village remains in control. And I think that that's what happens if we don't vote for the ordinance, is we lose that ability to self-govern what happens in our city.
So let me jump in there for
Yeah,
a second.
I agree.
My first vote was not to allow Tim Hortons here. So that would be my.
Because it had a drive-through.
Yes, that was my very first vote. And then the other one was I mean, there has been votes, and I know that goes against what we had in our charter and the ordinance, but there have been votes where we have voted on.
But we have had the Tim Hortons without a drive-through.
We tried to get a Starbucks, and that was also a no. And I don't think it had. Am I right that we tried to get a Starbucks and
We tried to get a
that was no
Starbucks
too?
and a Tim Hortons, and they were
Yeah,
both. Yeah.
the drive-through.
Yeah, and there were no petitions there.
The charge against the Tim Hortons,
I
and you know, because you guys let me talk for 20 minutes.
Right.
Which was
What has
I was going to
changed?
say, which was a view of things to come. That wasn't against donut shops or coffee shops. That was because that particular business didn't fit on that particular piece of land, because of what it would do to the neighborhoods and so forth. And I think the biggest thing was their traffic plan, would have had, the drive-through backing up onto one of the busiest roads in the county.
Right.
So, I mean, it wasn't because we didn't want coffee shops. It was because that coffee shop didn't fit on that particular piece of property.
So, and then I have one other thing to say, and I feel really strongly about this. So we heard tonight about stigma, and then we also heard someone talk about, people like you to do what they want to do, and that was said. And so my struggle with this is that there were people who spoke tonight who use marijuana, who buy marijuana, who creams, who do all sorts of different things. And yet it's kind of like, my parents owned a liquor store in a small town. They sold it out the back door to the Baptists, we were Southern Baptists because people didn't want it in their neighborhood. And I really think that is, I think it's a holdover, and I think it's elitist. And I think that if you want to utilize a service or a product, but you don't want to necessarily have that where you live, then there's some other issues you need to deal with.
Yeah. Councilwoman Medley, I totally agree with you. I mean, this is about stigma, just bottom line. Almost everybody that spoke against marijuana, basically, it's about stigma. This is not a Cheech and Chong business. That's been the stalwart for the last 20, 30 years. Most of the people that think about marijuana, they think about Cheech and Chong. This is not that business. I've been saying that since day one. Even when Councilman Siddiqui and I started going out and actually talking to people in different communities. And let me just be specific. In particular, we started talking to chiefs of police in these different cities. For example, Hazel Park, we spoke to Chief Buckholz directly on the phone. And we simply asked him, because I'm not pro-marijuana by any stretch of the imagination. I thought we were going to see high crime in these cities. I thought we were going to see loitering, or I thought we were going to see traffic issues, like as far as parking, as far as, just nuisance issues. And in every case, in every step of that process, where we talked to the chief of Hazel Park, the chief of Walled Lake, we talked to people in Westland, the council people in Westland. I can't even begin to tell you how many council people, how many city managers we talked to. We talked to people in White Cloud. We talked to even dispensaries in Hazel Park, not just Hyatt, but several others that are down the street. And in every case, zero crime as evidence based on what we submitted. Property values actually going up. And in addition to that, these dispensaries, they're putting millions of dollars in the dispensaries. So when I hear that a resident is being booed because he smokes marijuana and he has a opposing viewpoint, it speaks volumes to the stigma associated with having these in your city, that you did not do the research. I'm sorry. The vast majority of people who signed that petition didn't do the research. We did. And I was not pro marijuana. So that's one point. Second point is council was totally hands off on the process. I was just an advisor. Councilman Siddiqui was the chair. Councilwoman Medley was not a council person at the time. I actually met her through the marijuana process, the marijuana committee. So she was not even, I had never been introduced to her. So we took a stance to say, okay, let's see where the data is going to take us. So that's what we did. We followed the data. And as I stated before, I really thought crime was going to be high, when in fact, there is zero crime associated with this. There's high level of security. So everyone's talking about, it's a cash business, you're going to have issues with that. High level of security. And in addition to that, the police is also, supporting, maybe they weren't supporting before, but they actually support these businesses that have set up and have improved the level of those cities that they participate in. So again, I can't even speak to all of the other things, but I will say this, that it's a legitimate business. I didn't see a petition for Jagged Fork, and Jagged Fork has a lot of traffic. Go by Jagged Fork at 12 noon to 3 p.m. I didn't see any petitions submitted to me before they opened business. And you had plenty of
And a lot of
resources
parking.
to do it, right? What was that? You
And
had
a lot of parking.
what was
And
that?
a lot of parking.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is about stigma, plain and simple. It's just a retail business. And I'll give it to someone else, but I have a couple of other things.
Let me just thanks. I echo what Bruce said and what Dawn and Ian are saying. This was not a rush process at all. We took plenty of time to come to an informed and did a lot of investigation to come to the decision as a committee. And now through this whole process, the city is doing that very deliberately, coming to a decision on this issue. And Kelly's right. I mean, we need to listen to the residents, right? We're voted in and to do what's best for the city, to do what the residents want. The residents I talked to, and I talked to a lot of people, it's 2-to-1 favoring allowing the marijuana dispensaries in the city. So I know a lot of people signed the petition. That's great. I respect them and I respect their views. But like Dawn said, that's a group of people that have that feeling. The people that I talk to up and down my street and other streets that I've been to, like I said, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. It's more than 2-to-1. There's some that are indifferent. There's very few that are opposed, and there's quite a few that are in favor. So that's where I take the lead. I don't care about marijuana. I've never smoked it. I'm not in this for any other reason than to do what's best for the city. We did the investigation. There's very few negatives. There's a lot of positives, to the point where, hey, that's where the decision went. That committee was very unbiased, unlike some rumors that I've heard or some talk. I mean, we all went in there with our minds open and came to that decision. So I think, to me, the people are telling me that they do want it. That's what I see, and that's who I've talked to. And because of that, and the fact that we have to control this now, there's really no option. You can't in my mind, you can't not pass this at this point, because there's going to be another group that comes in, with their own ballot initiative, and then we're going to be stuck. You can't have that happen. You got to be in control of the situation. And that's what we're here. We've been voted on this council to do that, not abdicate our responsibilities on these kind of issues.
Yeah, just I want to add
I'm going to close it there because we kind of are talking about, to me, not all the same things. Right now, we're just talking about an ordinance, to put an ordinance in place so we have local control over it, and not voting for, rather not, we're allowing dispensaries or whatever to come to Lathrup. So yeah, was there anything else that has to do with the ordinance that anybody wants to speak to?
Yeah. So I have something to say regarding the ordinance. So part of that ordinance is about testing facilities, and testing facilities do not sell marijuana. They test product, a minimum amount of product. So when you hear testing facilities for marijuana, they don't sell marijuana. It's a high level of expertise that would relocate in a city, and 100% in the cities that we researched, they relocate to the city. Not only do they set up businesses, but the people that work for these companies, they don't drive in. They buy houses in Lathrup. They establish their families here. So it's about the ordinance, and testing facilities they don't sell marijuana. So that's another miscommunication on the other side.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to, real quickly, Kelly, before we close it up, I wanted to respond to a couple things that residents said and questions that were asked during the public comment. You know, one resident asked if this ordinance passes, can residents, essentially, I think he used the word nix, can they nix a business if they don't want it? And the answer to that question is no. However, you know, the next ordinance that we'll be voting on will be the zoning ordinance. And part of any approval of any of cannabis business is a special land use, correct, Scott?
That's correct.
Yeah, so there'd be a special land use. And as part of the special land use, what that means is that while it is a valid use of a piece of land, there may be special properties of that land that might allow for some specific conditions. So to throw out an example, we've got the gas station that's potentially opening. So there was a special land use for that. And we put conditions on it like, you know, the light couldn't come off the property, or they couldn't have speakers on their gas pumps, things like that. So residents would be notified. And then residents would then be able to state their views if there were specific conditions that needed to be put on the reasonable conditions that needed to be put on that particular business. But they can't 86 a business just because they don't like it. Another question that was made was, I think the very first speaker wanted to know why it wasn't a conflict of interest between the committee and council. And then there was also, I think, a public comment that was written that talked about how the committee was stacked. Just want to address those 2 points very quickly, and I think Councilman Ferguson started to address it as well. In terms of it being stacked, we had 6 applications for 5 positions, or 5 applications for 4 positions. So I don't know how that was stacked. We basically worked from the group that we had to pull, the pool that we had to choose from. I think everybody on that was open-minded. I think there was one person who wanted to relitigate the issue and couldn't focus on the task at hand. But I think it was an open-minded committee. And then they were talking about conflict of interest. Again, as Councilman Ferguson said, he was an advisor. He was not on the committee. Dawn was not a council person at that point. And I think one of the reasons why Dawn was actually appointed to council was because of her knowledge and her research having to do with marijuana, because we knew that this was one of the biggest decisions that we will have made in years. And she had a wealth of knowledge from her work on that committee.
And Bruce, I just want to be really clear about that. I didn't know about marijuana when we started on that process. So it's not like I came in as an advocate.
Right.
So I came in, I spent a lot of time learning and reading, and I did not expect to be someone who, again, would be supportive.
Right, and I think everybody who was on the committee, having listened to all the meetings, was like that. And I think that's the other questions that came up. The other one that came up was, is council simply just trying to delay by putting an ordinance in place? I can speak for myself and probably the rest of the council. I don't think anybody's using this as a delay tactic. You know, part of the process is getting the ordinance in place, and then the next step of the process is the resolutions, and that'll be where we discuss, you know, when and if we start this process. We're just taking it step by step. Nobody is trying, at least again, I know I'm not, and I think I can speak for everybody else, that nobody is trying to do a delay process here, simply just by getting a ordinance on the books. And I think somebody had brought that up. I don't remember the name of the person, but I think that was all the questions. Were there other questions that you wrote down there?
Mayor, if I could just offer a couple of comments that haven't been touched on already. A couple of people mentioned that we might be trying to enter into this because of the fees and dollars that might be generated from this, and that I don't think is really accurate. I think the revenues that have been generated around 28,000 per community, plus the per business license, and then the fee, the license fee, which is 5,000 per license, which is barely enough to cover the cost. But the economic development, it gives you another economic development tool in your tool case for your local community, and we need that here. We all understand we need that here. So as a catalyst for economic development, and also we have as an incentive within our scoring system for the community reinvestment, so a community benefit. So they have to demonstrate, if they want to get the scoring, a community benefit. So reinvestment in our parks, reinvestment in something that's going to be beneficial to the local community. So somehow, assuming that this passes, that there is some way that they can demonstrate to us that there is a benefit to local community for them to be a partner with us. And also, I just want to mention that nothing in the language, and I want to applaud our attorney for making certain that the language does not say shall, it says may. So at any point in the process, council can put the brakes on it and say, this is not what we want to do as we proceed. This is not appropriate for us. So you are, again, in the driver's seat as we're looking at this every step of the way.
Thank you. Well, I think we're just gonna go to a roll call for the ordinance only.
Roll call. Mayor Garrett.
For some first, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Yes.
Councilmember Medley.
Yes.
Councilmember Siddiqui.
Yes.
And Councilmember Ferguson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. They have the consideration of adoption marijuana cannabis zoning ordinance.
And Jill is here in case you have any questions as well.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Is someone introducing that?
I think we'll let Jill talk on that one.
I'd be happy to talk about it. So with the packet that you had for this meeting, you received the memo that described some of the process that the Planning Commission went through and some of the considerations that they went through in creating the ordinance that would regulate the placement of the cannabis facilities. These were all contingent on and still continue to be contingent on the license ordinance and the issuance of licenses. So there are, even by adopting this language, this does not open the doors tomorrow to these facilities. This is all dependent on the issuance of licenses. So you'll see again through the process that we talked about, some of the issues that we discussed, including trash, hours of operation, where these uses would be permitted, parking, outdoor limitations on outdoor activities. And then in the ordinance, which we've discussed with the Planning Commission, I had my other PowerPoint open, I forget now. Hold on, I think like 5 times. Oh, I have that on the cover. So we started talking about it last October, and we discussed it October, January, February, April. We had an open house in May, discussed it again in June, and then a public hearing last week at the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission has also been discussing this along with council for a good year now. After the public hearing at the Planning Commission last week, Planning Commission recommended that council consider adoption of the ordinance. And I can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Who's gonna make the motion?
I don't see any language for it, but I'll make a motion to approve the zoning ordinance related to cannabis.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Yes.
Member Medley.
Yes.
Councilmember Siddiqui.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Yes.
And Mayor Garrett.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of adoption comprehensive plan.
Let's talk about this one too.
Yep.
So as you may remember, well over a year ago, we started the planning process together of updating the city's comprehensive plan at a joint meeting of City Council, Planning Commission, the Downtown Development Authority. And we, since that time, even through the COVID pandemic, Planning Commission's been working on ways to update the community, the comprehensive development plan. And there is with your packet an outline of some of the changes and refinements that were made to the document. We didn't make any changes to the future land use map. Mostly these were refinements for some of the implementation strategies, updating those and creating new strategies. One of the things that I think is a highlight of a couple things really. Highlights of this plan include the idea of the neighborhoods and the idea of the neighborhood being like the local unit that the city can use and residents can use together in a variety of ways to promote more engagement within the city, rather than, as we kind of seen tonight, where we get people really engaged as we are nearing the end, and to some of the comments that were made a little bit earlier, trying to get folks engaged or much earlier in the process. And the idea behind some of that neighborhood organization is that we would provide a framework over time where people can really be engaged earlier. That also speaks to the idea of resiliency and sustainability and doing those things at the local level. So ideas about making sure that residents in every neighborhood have an awareness of the resources that might be available to them should there be a need to let people know about road closures or water issues, flooding, a pandemic, economic issues. And so really using that as a way to help spread the word for folks who maybe aren't fully engaged in online or in other ways. So considering the more vulnerable members of our community. So those two things, the idea of the neighborhoods and the idea of sustainability and resiliency, Planning Commission is already starting to have some conversations about sustainability. We've been just getting introduced to the topic of stormwater management and landscaping, and we will be moving forward on those things as we get into the next few months and years. So I'm, again, happy to answer any questions. We also had a public hearing on that as well last week, and Planning Commission adopted the comprehensive plan, and the City Council is also encouraged to adopt the plan as well, so that everybody's together on the same page and we can move forward together.
Thank you. Who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive plan as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Second.
It's been moved.
And third.
Right. It's been moved to second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Medley,
Yes.
Councilmember Siddiqui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, we have a consideration of resolution vacation of the alley west of Southfield Road between West 11 Mile Road and Sunnybrook Avenue. Well, I'm not sure what that's saying right there, but vacation and scheduling of public hearing, 18129 Sunnybrook. And this, just to note, the public hearing was held on June 21st. No vote was taken, and it requires 4 affirmative votes.
All right, that's correct, Madam Mayor. So this petition was submitted by none other than Mayor Pro Tem Bruce Cantor, who happens to be in attendance this evening, with respect to requesting vacation of the 20-foot wide alleyway east of his parcel of property. This process was initiated, and there was a public hearing held at June 21st. Some of the comments received during that public hearing addressed whether or not this has ever been done in the city before, if the city should be selling this property. I did provide at that meeting, unfortunately I didn't bring it with me, but going back through the archives in my office, this process has been utilized a number of times within the city
The city's never charged for this property. Typically, it's done in situations similar to this where the once intended alley was never developed. In this current situation, the alley is being utilized for parking and landscaping for the adjacent commercial businesses, as well as there is a building built across the end of the alley where it would terminate onto West 11 Mile Road. So based on the information, this request from this applicant is consistent with the city's use of this process in the past, and my recommendation would be to move forward with the attached resolution in your packet.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the resolution regarding the partial vacation of the public alley bounded by Sunnybrook Avenue and Southfield Road, 11 Mile Road, and Meadowbrook Way.
Second.
Is there any discussion, which I think we want to talk about the tax revenue that the city is going to realize from doing this?
Yeah, more Bruce Cantor has. Are you there?
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just 1 second. We're trying to make Bruce stop talking.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Before you, the motion.
I know what you're trying to do.
But yeah, so I just wanted to be clear that I am recusing myself from this. And then can I make a comment or no? Because
No, if there's questions from council, they can ask the applicant, but otherwise. You can
So
sit on your-
as I was saying, this is going to increase
Unmuted.
our tax revenue by vacating it to,
Albeit very, very minimally, yes, but it's, we're talking about 20 feet of property, so not a significant amount. Well, 20 by 100, but
yeah,
So-
but we're capturing something we have. Okay.
So Mayor Pro
Any
Tem
other
Cantor.
questions?
Yeah, just Mayor Pro Tem Cantor has first world problems. He's the only one on video that has volunteered to increase his taxes as we vacate this property. So, but yeah, just to reiterate Esquire Baker's statement, we've vacated alleys roughly 27 times in the history, over the history. So this is nothing new, and there's no gaming here whatsoever.
but you have my notes. Thanks, Ian.
Is there any further discussion?
he just paid attention when I presented last time.
Okay, you're none. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Siddiqui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Recusing myself.
and Councilmember Medley.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, we have the election of the MML Workers' Comp Fund trustees.
This is the fund that we participate in, and Michigan Municipal League Compensation Fund Board of Trustees. And there are 5 seats up for election or reappointment, re-election. And there are 5 seats open. So we need a actual nomination from this board in order for me to go ahead and to submit that. So we need a vote from you affirming that action.
But even if we didn't affirm, it's still gonna happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a formality.
Who'd like to make a motion?
Make a motion to affirm the nomination as provided by the MML Workers' Compensation Board and authorize the city clerk or city administrator to notify the MML before August 13th, 2021.
Second.
It's been moved to second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Garrett,
Yes. I should say no.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor,
Yes.
Councilmember Medley,
Yes.
and Councilmember Siddiqui.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. City Administrator, do you have anything that you would like to report out?
Just two things. It's been a long day. One, I want to thank our very outstanding and dedicated staff. They have put in many hours, and if you know the work that has gone on behind the scenes to make this happen, I don't know of many communities that have actually had a hybrid meeting, in person combined with Zoom meeting. And we made it happen. We had, some little technical things we had to work out, but we accommodated the need of our community to have a listening session in person while still keeping everyone as safe as we could, because it still is a COVID environment. So we were cognizant of that. And we still have people who needed to attend via a Zoom remote environment. So how do you make all of that work? And we made it happen today. A year ago in March, we weren't even on Zoom. And so to make that happen in essentially a year's time is really remarkable. And I just want to applaud everyone. If you saw us earlier today trying to figure this out, it was a little bit comical. And you're very fortunate you didn't hear me singing while we were testing the microphones. But I truly do want to applaud our staff and the officers and everyone who made certain all of those little details behind the scene to make certain the meeting did go as smoothly as we could make it happen today. And I forgot what the other point was, but it was pretty important. But thank you all.
Thank you. City Attorney?
You heard enough from me.
Okay. I'm going to say it, but I'm praying also for Planning Commission.
I have nothing to report. Everything I would have had to report was voted on tonight, so I stand moved.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
Even is there any unfinished or new business?
Yeah, just unfinished business on my side. Just want to bring back up the task that I had to kind of research how we could actually provide a service for those in need as far as mental health, as far as having some sort of contact and or company that could facilitate and or meet residents by way of some sort of city directed initiative. So I did a lot of research. Obviously, I couldn't find much by way of Oakland County, but what I discovered was the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services actually launched a quote unquote warm line to aid persons with mental health and needs during COVID. So basically, in a nutshell, I'll keep it as brief as possible. The warm line is actually set up and is designed to help individuals with long-term mental health challenges. And I'll give you guys all of this. I'll give it to the mayor as well as the city manager in an email. So those with mental health challenges who find someone to talk to, someone who has lived these challenges themselves. So the person on the other line actually have lived the challenges and do it while staying safe, staying at home. And also they can call anytime. So during this time of COVID, where it's a grave threat, not just to physical health, but also to mental health. And this program is in effect right now. It's activated. There's a toll-free 888 number that you can call. I will provide all of that information. And I actually called the phone number just to see who would answer and how would they address the call. And they were very receptive to my phone call. There are actually people on the other line, as I stated, that have gone through mental health issues, have gone through alcoholic issues, drug issues, and they volunteer. They're clean and sober for many years. And people who are shut in or are isolated or are paranoid about COVID, they can simply call the phone number and that person will stay on the line for as long as it takes. So they open at 10 a.m. and they close at 2 a.m. So Dr. Mitchell, I will forward you additional information. My goal is to point residents directly by way of our city website through to these phone numbers and the website, so that way they can get some help, as well as always know that there's someone out there that will need help and they can point this information to that person or individual. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Also coming to public comment, where the public can address the council about, I guess, whatever is on your mind for 2 minutes. Is there anyone that is or wants to speak?
There are no hands raised at this time, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. For the mayor and council comments. So I have tons of notes, and I apologize that it is 10:25, but I have tons of notes. Number one, I do commend the city staff, the city administration, and the police department of all being here in the midst of a pandemic to accommodate many people that were very upset about us being on Zoom. And I looked at some other cities, and you're absolutely right. Other cities, they are still on Zoom because we are still technically in a pandemic. But I think that you all have done a really good job in being very accommodating to make sure that all voices are heard, because we've got numerous emails of saying that the residents' voices need to be heard. So you had today 3 different ways that you could do it. Also, just to go back a little bit to the cannabis thing, I appreciate everyone that tells us about the medicinal purposes of it and things like that, and that there's no bad side. I experienced the bad side of it, so that's not necessarily true. So that's a personal thing, which is inaccurate. Also, but what is accurate, because literally I should not be here tonight because my son has been in emergency since this afternoon at 12 o'clock, but still came here because I knew how important that this situation was. And he does have sickle cell anemia, and we struggle back and forth about the whole marijuana thing, and it eases the pain, but it doesn't take it away. So I'm not saying that it's, that I wanted to say that. And lastly, I must be on somebody's hit list again, because 3 people have texted me and called me to tell me that I was incorrect this evening. And I will be the first person to say that I am by far so sorry that I misspoke after flying in at 1 a.m. last night and responding to emails to our citizens to make sure that I did respond and go to work and take my son to the hospital and come back here. And I misspoke when I said about the bike paths. My mistake. I'm sorry. So we did give $10,000 from the DDA and $10,000 from the city. And again, I apologize for misspeaking and being without sleep and speaking out of turn. So I could go on. I have had a barrage of emails that have been unkind. I don't know what happened to the Lathrup that I loved. So I said it, I corrected myself. Oh my God, before somebody else emails me and completely, utterly dogs me out. So, and there was some comments. I had it teed up too. Kelly Garrett had it teed up. There were some comments that came through that did not get put into the packet, but all of the other comments have been put into the packet. So I'm not going to read them all, but please read them at your leisure. So the one that did not get added is from James Tate McBroom, and his is proper occupational licensure is all that is necessary to eliminate any serious liabilities in ownership, employees, or the patrons of any dispensary. Transient overall are not going to come to Lathrup Village to purchase marijuana. The grand majority of transactions are going to come from residents who live within a 2.5 mile radius of any said dispensary. The main concerns voiced during these proceedings should focus on how to effectively license and maintain standards of professionalism and safety of marijuana dispensaries in Lathrup Village, not on whether or not we should allow them. The other one is from, God, maybe I should put my glasses on just to make it easier. Karen Miller, how can any city council member besides Kelly make an objective decision regarding allowing marijuana related establishments in LV? City council called for the formation of a marijuana study group. That group included 3 of you, Salim, Dawn, and Ian, as well as Bruce's wife. That group came up with the recommendation to allow marijuana-related establishments. You then directed the planning commission, which included Bruce, to develop ordinances to allow marijuana-related establishments. Now you are going to vote on those ordinances. Your process is flawed. There is no way to do, this is no way to do business. Where are the checks and balances? And I think that's all, because I didn't see certain ones that I did receive in here. Is there another, because I see that some of those that was in the package might be not the ones I got.
The amended agenda had 2 packets of comments.
This one's in there.
I don't know.
Because I didn't see it in there.
Yeah.
So this is from Barb Canez. As a lifelong resident of Lathrup Village, I can't recall a time when City Hall was so distrusted. The decisions that have been made and the direction the city is going is disgraceful. It seems a handful of oligarchs have taken it upon themselves to drive this once peaceful and beautiful bedroom community into their vision of what? What's the plan? Thank you. Dispensaries, liquor stores, pawn shops, these businesses bring with them a reputation. If it is the reputation Lathrup Village wants, is this, okay, whatever. No, we'd rather be a community known for healing, not dealing. Whoever thought this was a good idea needs to be fired. This issue needs to be tabled until residents get their say. Is this in here? I don't want to. I know.
I don't know if it was in there or not. I know it came through. Go ahead, let her respond.
Okay, this is from Don, and I'm so sorry. I can stock. Sorry. This is vetting.
He's a part of the marijuana committee.
I understand. We got it. Thank you.
You're breaking up. That's why I'm correcting you. It's not like I'm mansplaining. You're breaking up over here.
I think there's a delay, and that's why we're laughing.
Okay, thank you. God.
Vetting, apparently the council did not vet Dawn Metley very thoroughly. Did they ask about the job she was getting in the state of New York? Why did they accept her application and then vote to accept her for the position when they knew she was moving to New York? Rescind. The council should immediately rescind her appointment to that position, to the position. How can she effectively represent the residents of Lathrup Village from the state of New York? If you like, you may.
All right, I will respond. So first off, I met Dawn when we were on the marijuana committee. And we had what I would say is a contentious relationship on that committee because I am a single mom and raised my daughter, and he iterated at several occasions that marijuana led to single parenthood. And there were a lot of other things and a lot of other comments made. And so he and I had, as I said, a rather contentious relationship. As far as my qualifications and eligibility to serve on this council, I had initially agreed to volunteer to be on the marijuana study group. Then I was approached by someone who was a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission who approached me and asked me to solicit or to submit an application. I did. I submitted the application, and there were other more qualified folks at the time who were selected, very supportive of that. And then I submitted an application to be on city council. I reviewed the eligibility criteria. I meet those eligibility criteria. I am still a resident of Lathrup Village, despite having accepted a position at Stony Brook University, where I have begun working remotely. I also still am employed at Wayne State University. I have a consulting gig in California, one in Indianapolis, one in Chicago, and 2 more in the city of Detroit. So I travel a great deal. We have sold our home in the city, and we will be in temporary housing within the city as well. And I remain a registered voter and dedicated member of this community. So I would encourage, and I shared with Mayor Garrett and also with Pro Tem Cantor, that I regret the fact that we will be moving on, as the election comes in November, because I would have gladly run again. But this way, there's an open city seat that is fully competitive, and the folks who are passionate about issues will have an opportunity to run and not have to face an incumbent. So I still think it's the best of both worlds, and I hope that my service is supported.
Thank you. And I will say that I did vet you, because when I found that out, I called immediately and said, this is not a good move. And then that's when I found out about me living here still.
Yes.
So that's,
yes,
I'm comfortable. So I think I'm done for right now, because there's so much more I would like to say. And I went through all the comments, and there are a bunch that just are disappointing, but that, that's democracy. Does anyone else from council have anything that you would like to add for the good of the cause or need to be heard?
I'd like to say, I want to say just one thing real quick. I just wish people would not, spew out blatant falsities all the time. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous what Karen Miller said, that marijuana committee was stacked. Come on. Dawn was not a committee member, not a council person. She was somebody out of the blue that none of us knew. I was heading the committee. Ms. Ian Ferguson was an advisor. We had one council person leading the committee, which is a practice, normal practice that we have on that committee. Everyone came in with an open mind, except I would say one person. And I'm not going to mention who that is. But that committee did a great job. And, so I think that's false, what she said. The other person who says that this was an oligarchy, whatever. I wish I was rich like an oligarch, but I guess I'm not. So.
Obviously doesn't know the definition of an oligarch.
Yeah. And come on, Don. I mean, I've heard this rumor that Dawn Medley has already moved out to New York and she's working from over there. She's still here. I mean, people blatantly spew out nonsense. I'm just sick and tired of it. So that's all I wanted to comment at the end of this long night. Cut it out, people. That's what I got to say.
Wow.
Okay.
I remember the
That's
other
it.
thing, if you, with sadness, but looking forward to his future. Officer Rock Upshaw's retirement from the city after 23 years, and we're having the retirement celebration on Thursday, and it will be open to the public starting at 1 o'clock here in the pavilion. Should it rain, we will bring it indoors, but it is open to the public so everyone can wish him well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I just like to sincerely thank the residents, all residents who came and spoke.
Absolutely.
And again, I do want to thank the residents who attempted to put a petition in place. I think your voice was heard. It made us, think twice. And as I said earlier in my comments, please, if you still feel that this is the wrong decision for the city, move forward with another petition for the next election. I mean, that's your right, and that's what you should do. But I do want to thank everybody. There, as the mayor said, there were a lot of negative comments, but there was also a lot of good discussion. I had some really great discussions with the people who were against cannabis in the city, and some of those discussions made me think about certain things again. I think I still came to the same conclusion personally, but I do want to thank those people. And I encourage everybody to stay active and keep involved, be engaged, check out the website, for every meeting, look at the agenda. And if you have issues with anything on the agenda, come to council. I mean, that's what we want. We want people to attend and participate and be active instead of reactive when a decision is made. So, but thank you everybody for taking part in the process.
Thank you. I think everyone has spoken unless there's something that's burning besides my eyes.
My eyes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I would love to take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Thank
Good night,
you
everyone.
guys. Have a very good night.
Thank you.